Chapter 422. Spirit Domain of the Nine States. The four major forces were East Royal City, West Rank 3 Long Family, South Nether Mansion, and North Ethereal Palace. It was unknown if the four major forces did it on purpose. Each force occupied 2 states. The four major forces occupied 4 states, and the remaining Tianzhou was given to the Dragon Sect. The Ghost King sect existed in name only, so the 9 states were completely divided between the 4 major forces and the Dragon Sect. The 4 major forces seemed to be very satisfied with this result. Everyone also thought that the Dragon Sect would be happy that the 4 major forces made concessions. After all, if the 4 major forces attacked with all their might, it was hard to say if the Dragon Sect could withstand it. But at this time, the Dragon Sect suddenly attacked the other 9 states, and the first target was the 2 states controlled by the Imperial City. What was Longao trying to do? What was the Dragon Sect trying to do? Everyone was completely dumbfounded. They didn't know why Longao was doing this. Did he really think that the Dragon Sect could fight against the 4 major forces? If this could be tolerated, what could be tolerated? No matter how good the temper of the 4 major forces was, they couldn't tolerate Longao's actions. But among the 4 major forces, Nether Mansion and Ethereal Palace endured it in the end. They knew very well that Longao's target was the Imperial City and the Long family. There was no need for them to get involved. Watching the fire from the other side was the best plan. The Imperial City and Rank 3 Long family didn't want to continue fighting with Longao because no one would benefit from it. It was because of this that the Imperial City and Rank 3 Long family gave up Tianzhou. But the 2 major forces never expected that Longao didn't know what was good for him and chose to attack them. If they could endure this, the Imperial City and Rank 3 Long family would be laughed at by the world. For dignity and face, this battle was unavoidable. Just like this, the Imperial City and Rank 3 Long family joined forces to deal with Longao. Longao wasn't afraid at all and directly sent out the Corpse Demon army. After all, Corpse Demons were immortal. Even if they were defeated, the Dragon Sect wouldn't lose anything. At the beginning of the battle, many people didn't have high hopes for the Dragon Sect. Even the Imperial City and Rank 3 Long family said that they would beat the Dragon Sect back to Tianzhou within 3 days, never to rise again. If the Imperial City and the Rank 3 Long family said this in the past, everyone would definitely choose to believe it. Ever since the Royal City and the Level 3 Long family had been defeated time and time again, no one believed them anymore. Instead, they looked forward to Longao's counterattack because Longao was always able to bring them surprises. Each time, he would heavily injure the 4 factions, forcing the 4 factions to retreat and give up Tianzhou. If this was an ordinary sect, would the 4 great powers give it to them? He had to admit that the Dragon Sect was indeed powerful. In just a few short months, they had grown to the point where they could contend with the 4 major forces. The Imperial City and the Level 3 Long family were full of confidence, but in less than 6 hours after the battle, the Imperial City and the Level 3 Long family were beaten back by the Dragon Sect. Everyone was shocked by this result, but they were also extremely excited. Longao, a legendary figure, had once again proved the strength of the Dragon Sect and how a loser could turn the tables. After the Dragon Sect successfully defeated the Imperial City and the Level 3 Long family, they didn't stop and continued to attack. The Imperial City and the Level 3 Long family were depressed because they didn't know where the Dragon Sect got such a powerful undying army. If this continued, could the Imperial City and the Level 3 Long family continue to fight? Spirit Region of the 9 States, Level 3 Long family. Main Hall. Long Morwen and Long Yan's faces were extremely gloomy because the 2 of them didn't expect that Longao would choose to attack first. They were helpless and were forced to retreat. If this continued, they would be defeated by the Dragon Sect sooner or later. Elder, did you find out? Master, we found out, but we still can't find out what this undying army is. Anyway, it's just undying. Long Morwen cursed in his heart. Until now, Long Morwen still didn't know how Longao did it. To be able to find such a powerful undying army, it was simply invincible. Master, forgive me for being blunt, but we can no longer stop Longao's rise. The Ethereal Palace and Nether Mansion have already withdrawn from the 9 states. Their intention is very simple. They want us and the dragon sect to suffer losses so that they can reap the benefits when the time comes. Longmorwen nodded. How could he not know what the elders said? But did the level 3 Long family really withdraw from the 9 states? For so many years, the 4 major forces had been fighting both openly and covertly, all because they wanted to fight for the sovereignty of the 9 regions. This time, before the 4 major forces started fighting, a dragon sect suddenly appeared, and they even had an undead army. If the 4 major forces fought together, they wouldn't lose. But the problem now was that the Ethereal Palace and Nether Mansion had already withdrawn from the 9 states. It could be said that the 4 states of the 9 states were given to Longao. Master, why don't we give the 9 states to Longao first? At most, we can control the 9 states' domain. Longmorwen waved his hand and suddenly asked, do you know why the 4 major forces have been trying to control the ordinary spirit domain for so many years and become the overlords of the ordinary spirit domain? Long Yin shook his head. He really didn't know about this. Elder, there is something you don't know. This matter is the highest secret of the 4 major forces. Apart from the few elders and the master, no one else knows about it. Hearing the master's words, Long Yin was even more curious. He didn't know what secrets the ordinary spirit domain had. Legend has it that the War of the Gods happened in the ordinary spirit domain. Countless divine realm cultivators fell. I believe the elders shouldn't be unfamiliar with divine realm cultivators, right? Divine realm cultivators? Hearing the supreme Tao martial artist from the sect master's mouth, Long Yin was taken aback. Naturally, Long Yin was not unfamiliar with the supreme Tao martial artists. As the pinnacle existence in the world, every supreme Tao martial artist was incomparably powerful. Their martial arts could even move the sun and moon. Long Yin really didn't know about the War of the Gods. Now, Long Yin finally understood why the 4 major forces were so determined to dominate the ordinary spirit domain. Without the master's explanation, Long Yin already knew the reason. If nothing unexpected happened, the 4 major forces were all trying to obtain the inheritance of the gods. After all, every divine realm cultivator was the strongest. As long as they could obtain the inheritance, it wasn't impossible for them to become a new divine realm cultivator. Long Yin was also somewhat excited. He said, Master, if that's the case, then no matter what happens, we can't hand over the ordinary spirit domain. Waving his hand, Longmorwen said in a serious tone, Ethereal Palace and Nether Mansion have already left the 9 states. We should also leave. The War of the Gods caused the divine realm cultivators to fall. No one can find them. We should temporarily avoid them and see how strong the dragon sect is. Chapter 423. Long Yin knew that the master had begun to fear Longao. He had no choice. Long Yin knew that the Ethereal Palace and the Nether Mansion had already left the 9 states. If the rank 3 Long family insisted on going to war with Longao, the benefits would only go to the 2 forces. Because of this, the rank 3 Long family suddenly announced that they would leave the 9 states. At this time, 3 of the 4 forces had already left the 9 states, leaving only the imperial city. Duan he was extremely depressed. He never thought that a small Longao would be so powerful that he could force the 3 forces to leave. He had no choice. The other 3 forces had already left. Was he going to insist on staying? With the departure of the imperial city, the 9 states were now ruled by the dragon sect. This meant that Longao had become the overlord of the 9 states. Although they already knew the truth, many people still didn't believe it. They didn't know why the 4 forces left the 9 states. Were they really afraid of the dragon sect? The 9 states was in an uproar. Because the dragon sect had become the overlord of the 9 states, all the forces were in high spirits. The reason was simple. In the eyes of the sects and clans of the 9 states, Longao was a native of the 9 states, but the 4 major forces were foreign invaders. Between the two, everyone had no choice but to choose the dragon sect, not the 4 major forces. In the pavilion at the back of the mountain of the dragon sect, Ao, what do you think about the 4 forces leaving the 9 states? Ao Tion, the Ghost King, was unconvinced, but he knew his own limits. With his current strength, he no longer had the qualifications to enter the world of the 9 states. However, Ao didn't give up. No matter what, Longao had become the overlord of the 9 states. As long as Aoshue and Longao were married, he could use the power of the dragon sect to quickly develop the power of the Ghost King sect. Longao spread his hands, indicating that he didn't know. Longao also didn't know why the 4 forces left the 9 states. Were they afraid of him? Longao knew very well that the 4 forces didn't leave the 9 states because they were afraid of him and the dragon sect. The 4 major forces have been fighting openly and secretly for so many years. They all want to kill each other, but none of them have the strength to do so. And for so many years, the 4 major forces have been trying to dominate the ordinary domain. Do you know why? Shaking his head, Longao replied, I don't know. The reason why the 4 great forces have retreated from the 9 states is because they don't want to give other forces a chance to take advantage of them. However, I can guarantee that the Eastern Imperial City, the Long family, the Southern Nether Mansion, and the Northern Ethereal Palace will not give up on the ordinary spirit realm. Why is that? Longao was very curious. Since the 4 great powers had already withdrawn from the 9 provinces continent, why did they still return? Could it be that they really wanted to contend against him? Longao was well aware of the foundation and strength of the 4 major forces. Although the dragon sect could not go against them, the dragon sect had the corpse slave army. They were not afraid of the 4 major forces. It was precisely because of this that Longao really couldn't understand. The 4 great forces had already dominated the spirit realm of the 9 states. Compared to the 2 great realms, one was in the sky and the other was on the ground. As if he could guess what Longao was thinking, Ao said, have you heard of a Supreme Dao martial artist? Supreme Dao martial artist? He had no idea what a Supreme Dao martial artist was. Longao shook his head and asked, what is a Supreme Dao martial artist? Longao only knew of illusionary divine martial artists and great emperor martial artists. Could it be that a Supreme Dao martial artist was above a great emperor martial artist? I won't hide it from you. I also don't know what a Supreme Dao martial artist is. However, there are rumors that a Supreme Dao martial artist is the strongest existence in the world. They are the true experts that stand at the peak of martial arts. Every Supreme Dao martial artist can easily destroy the 9 states. It's just that I have never seen a Supreme Dao martial artist. Hearing these words, Longao was considered shocked to the extreme. Longao had always thought that a titled great emperor was the existence at the peak of martial arts. Now, it seemed that a true expert at the peak of martial arts was not a titled great emperor, but a Supreme Dao martial artist. Longao was very clear that a Supreme Dao martial artist was only a legend. As for whether they existed or not, Ao did not know. Back then, I inadvertently received a piece of news. It turned out that many years ago, there was a great war between the gods. Countless Supreme Dao martial artists fell one after another, and the whereabouts of their corpses were unknown. Therefore, the 4 major forces always wanted to dominate this place and find the Supreme Dao martial artists to obtain the inheritance. Nodding his head, Longao finally knew why the 4 major forces insisted on dominating the 9 states. The inheritance of a Supreme Dao warrior, moreover, it was the inheritance of countless Supreme Dao warriors. Such a temptation, it was believed that no matter who it was, no one would be able to resist. Longao was no exception, but Longao did not think about the Supreme Dao warriors. Because Longao was very clear that if it was so easy to find a Supreme Dao martial artist, the 4 major forces would have found it long ago. Why would they wait until now? Therefore, Longao could be sure that even if the great war between the gods was true, it would be very difficult for people to find where the corpses of the Supreme Dao martial artists were buried. The great war between the gods, the Supreme Dao martial artists. Seeing that Longao did not respond, Ao seemed to be somewhat anxious. Do you understand what I mean? Nodding his head, Longao certainly understood what Ao was thinking. It was nothing more than wanting to rely on himself and the dragon sect to find the so-called Supreme Dao martial artist corpses. When the time came to accept the inheritance, one could imagine what would happen. If there was a clear goal, Longao certainly would not refuse. However, The problem now was that this was just a legend, an illusory legend. It was precisely because of this that Longao did not think about this matter at all, which made Aotion very depressed. Aoer, the supreme Tao martial artists are very far away from us. I never bite off more than I can chew. Also, I always believe in one thing, that is, what is yours will always be yours. If it is not yours, no matter what, it will not run away. Having said that, Aotion was still not reconciled. With a deep sigh, Longao said helplessly, "This is just my own idea. Now that the dragon sect has controlled the entire 9 regions, I will not ask more about the matters of the 9 regions. I hope you can find the corpses of the supreme Tao martial artists." Hearing this, Aotion's heart suddenly rejoiced. It would be a lie to say that he was not happy. In any case, the 9 regions was now under the control of the dragon sect. If Longao did not say anything, he could only do things with his hands tied. Without waiting for Aotion to speak, Longao said first, "However, you can only use the strength of the Ghost King sect, but not the strength of the dragon sect. I can only help you to this point." Longao stood up and said, "I still say the same thing. Don't be too forceful in everything. If it is yours, it will be yours. If it is not yours, it will never belong to you. Take care of yourself." Longao had never had a good impression of Aotion. If it were not for Aoshue, he would not have cared about Aotion at all. In addition to his great ambition, his character was not what Longao liked. However, Aotion was still Aoshue's father. P.S. Xiaojiu goes to eat first. The remaining 5 chapters will be delivered one by one later. Chapter 424. Looking at the gradually departing Longao, Aotion did not choose to give up. No matter what happened, he had to find the bones of the supreme Tao martial artist and obtain the inheritance of the supreme Tao martial artist. Aotion clearly knew that as long as he could obtain the inheritance of the supreme Tao martial artist and achieve the position of supreme Tao, not to mention the 9 regions, even the 9 regions spirit domain would not be a problem. In the distance, looking at Aotion sitting alone, Longao sighed deeply and said helplessly, "Aoshue, I have tried my best. He has already gone mad." Aoshue's face was filled with sadness. She was also powerless towards her father. Shaking her head, Aoshue said sadly, "This is not your fault. Father brought this upon himself. I only hope that when Father reaches the end, you can give him a hand." "I will." Longao, the 4 major forces have already withdrawn from the 9 regions. What are you going to do? Longao and Aoshue found a secluded place to be alone, inside the dragon seal space. "Longfu, do you know about the supreme Tao martial artists?" Nodding, Longfu's expression was always the same. He said indifferently, "Master, the supreme Tao martial artists are the pinnacle of existence. With your current strength, knowing too much will only do you more harm than good." They really existed. Longao was shocked, because now he finally knew that the supreme Tao martial artists really existed in this world. No wonder the 4 major forces were eyeing the 9 regions. This kind of temptation, he believed that many people could not resist. Longfu, could it be that there really are the bones of the supreme Tao martial artists in the 9 regions? Nodding, Longfu said, "There is." The supreme Tao war that year was earth-shattering. There were countless casualties, causing almost all the supreme Tao martial artists to fall. He was pleasantly surprised in his heart. It seemed that Longfu really knew where the skeletons of the supreme Tao martial artists were. If he could find them, not only would he become a supreme Tao martial artist, but he would also be able to create a supreme Tao army. Wouldn't he be able to do whatever he wanted at that time? Without waiting for Longao to speak, Longfu had already said, "Master, I've already said that with your current strength, even if you find the skeletal tomb of a supreme Tao martial artist, apart from suffering a backlash and dying without a burial ground, it's impossible for you to obtain the inheritance." He sighed deeply. Longao was very unwilling, but he also knew that if the inheritance was compared to his life, the inheritance was not worth mentioning. Shrugging his shoulders helplessly, Longao smiled and said, "I'd better rely on my own efforts and talent to slowly improve myself. Martial artist of the supreme Tao, one day, I will step onto the peak of the supreme Tao and look down on the firmament. In the following days, Longao did not bother with the dragon sect. According to the current situation, the dragon sect was already the overlord of the 9 states. Unless it was the 4 major powers, otherwise, no one would dare to provoke the dragon sect. Longao was very clear that the 4 major powers withdrew from the 9 states because they were afraid of each other. If the 4 major powers were determined to deal with him, there would be a lot of trouble. It was because of this that Longao was preparing to set up the great celestial array in the dragon sect and his family. At that time, even if the 4 major powers attacked together, the dragon sect would not have to fear. According to the Tao of Array that his master had imparted to him, Longao made a rough list. God-slaying sword array, phantom illusion array, Tai Chi formless array, hidden dragon divine annihilation array, yin-yang turbid sky array, 6-wheeled demon fiend array, infinite tornado illusion array, 5 elements array, 2 elements vanishing dust array, 12 divine fiends array, great stars array, 9 bins yellow river array, spirit gathering array, 8 trigrams array, 1 origin array, 2 chi array, 3 talents array, 4 extremes array, 5 elements array, 6 lights array, 7 stars array, 8 trigrams array, 9 palaces array, 10 extremes array, 1 deficiency array, 12 divine fiends array, 24 constellations array, 36 dipper array, 72 earthly fiends array, 9 bins yellow river array, 10,000 ghost soul devouring array, infinite chaos array, 10,000 demons array, 9 heavens and 10 earths demon subduing array, great heavens divination array, minor heavens divination array, nirvana void lifeless array, 3 lives 3 death soul dispersing array. Longao knew that the Tao of Array that his master had imparted to him was only the tip of the iceberg. It would not be easy to set up all of the array formations here. After thinking about it, Longao decided to set up 36 of the array formations first. Array formations within array formations, array formations within array formations, array formations within array formations. For an entire half a month, Longao did not take a single step out of the sect. Apart from setting up array formations, he was setting up array formations. If it were according to the array formations that he had slowly refined, it would be a pipe dream for him to set up these array formations. However, Longao's situation was somewhat different. After obtaining Fintion's inheritance, his understanding of array formations was quite deep. Gradually, Longao's array formations became more and more powerful. Yi Wushuang. Longao had never dared to forget his hatred for his master. No matter what his master's motive was, Fintion would always be his master when he passed down the array formations to him. As the saying went, a master for a day was a father for life. Moreover, Longao was a person who valued relationships and loyalty. After setting up all the array formations, Longao did not tell anyone. No matter what, the dragon sect was developing too quickly. There were pros and cons. No one knew who was the traitor. If the array formations were leaked, it would be useless. The dragon sect had 2 trump cards, the corpse slave army and the array formations. After setting up the array formations, Longao roughly explained the matter and returned to the Long family with Aoshua and Fire Qilan. The current Long family was no longer the same as before. With Longao's powerful rise, the Long family did not continue to hide. Instead, they appeared openly in Tianzhou and faced the world. Aoer, you're finally back. There's a letter for you here. Take a look. Letter? Longao had no idea who wrote the letter to him. After taking the envelope from his grandfather's hand, Longao had just opened it when his entire body trembled. The book that was holding the envelope kept trembling because he was too familiar with the words on the letter. Yu'in. Yu'in? Hearing the name from Longao's mouth, everyone suddenly realized that it was a letter from Yu'in. Everyone knew about the relationship between Yu'in and Longao. However, ever since Yu'in was taken away by their master, there had been no news from her. Now that he finally saw a letter, how could Longao not be excited? Brother Ao, it's been a few months since we last met. How have you been? Master brought me to the sect, and I'm doing well. My strength has increased rapidly, so you don't have to worry about me. Apart from training, you must be careful. No matter what happens, You must remember that there's a Yuin far away who cares about you. It's hard to express the longing in my heart with just a few words. We haven't met yet, but now is not the time. Master has already promised me that as long as I can break through the divine realm, I can leave the sect and come back to see you. So, I don't have to worry about you. If you don't abandon me, I will stay by your side in life and death. Yuin who misses you, I hope you can take care of yourself. We will definitely meet again. Chapter 425. He had finished reading the letter, but Longao didn't move. His eyes stared at the contents of the letter, especially the sentence, "If you don't leave me, I'll be by your side in life and death." Yuin didn't say where she was. Even if he had countless thoughts and feelings, he could only be anxious and helpless. "Yuin, where are you now?" Hearing Longao's sigh, everyone sighed in their hearts. They were originally a good couple, but they didn't even know where Yuin was. It was really infuriating. "Aoer, father, what's wrong?" Following his father's gaze, Longao saw Aoshue standing there with an indifferent expression. He scolded himself in his heart. Even if he missed Yuin, it seemed that he had gone overboard. Everyone was very tactful and quickly left one by one. In a short while, only Longao and Aoshue were left in the entire Long family's main hall. "Aoshue, I'm sorry. I didn't do it on purpose." Shaking her head, Aoshue resisted the urge to cry in her heart. Her face was very calm as she smiled and said, "It's okay. Let me see what Sister Yuin wrote for you." Before Longao could react, the letter in his hand was already in Aoshue's hand. "If you don't leave me, I'll be by your side in life and death." When Aoshue saw this sentence, her body suddenly trembled. However, she didn't say anything and just quietly read it. "Brother Ao, where is Sister Yuin?" As if she didn't want to fall behind, Aoshue kept calling Longao's name or brat. She never called him Brother Ao. The more Aoshue acted like this, the more Longao's heart ached. While his heart ached, he also felt an abnormal headache. There were two confidants who forcefully divided his love into two. Aoshue felt terrible, and he felt even more helpless. However, Longao knew that he couldn't lose anyone, whether it was Aoshue or Yuin. Shaking his head, Longao sighed helplessly as he spoke of Yin's whereabouts. "I don't know much about Yuin right now. Aoshue, I like hearing you call me brat and nothing else." Hearing this, Aoshue's body suddenly trembled. She could no longer control herself and burst into tears. She hugged Longao tightly and cried to her heart's content. Longao would rather fight 100 rounds with an expert than face a woman's tears. Longao could only hug Aoshue's body without saying a word. The night was quiet. Longao and Aoshue sat on the side of the bed. The two of them looked at each other, and gradually, the two of them fell down. After 100 rounds of sex, this was completely different from the last time. After all, the last time they did it, it was an unintentional thing. The two of them didn't know it all. That night, the two of them released their feelings to their heart's content, a total of 7 times. One had to admit that Longao was really strong. Just this point alone was probably beyond the reach of many men. The next day, early morning. "Brat, you were really naughty last night. So many times." Strictly speaking, what happened last night was Longao's first time. Because the first time he did it with Aoshue, both of them were unconscious and didn't know it all. The two of them got up and cuddled for a long time. Just as Aoshue left the room, she was pulled over by Mu Lin. "Aoshue, tell mother, did you and Ao do it last night?" "Damn, so direct." Mu Lin's words caused Aoshue's face to turn red. She stammered, not knowing how to answer. Not speaking was a tacit agreement. This made Mu Lin happy for a long time. "Aoshue, when do you plan on having a child?" "Mother, this, that, me, him, us." Aoshue didn't know what she was saying. In any case, she stammered, not knowing what to say. Longao was smart. He already knew that his mother would ask about this matter, so he had already avoided her. After spending the night with Aoshue, he immediately began to lay down an array formation. It was almost identical to the array formation that the dragon sect had laid down. With the fire Kirin guarding it, Longao had full confidence that even if the 4 great influences came, they still wouldn't be able to break through this array formation. Big brother, how is your inheritance? Looking at his seventh brother, Longing had a helpless expression. Even with his talent and the inheritance of the high ancestor, he still couldn't catch up to his seventh brother. His seventh brother was already a world king martial artist, but what about him? He had just passed his thunder tribulation. It's all right. I have to say, the high ancestor is indeed very powerful. In just a few months, I've already broken through the thunder tribulation realm. Seventh brother, have you heard of the great emperor realm? Nodding, Longao didn't know what his big brother meant. He asked curiously, Big brother, what's wrong? Seventh brother, you don't know. Ever since I received the high ancestor's inheritance, I learned a lot of things. It turns out that above the nothingness realm, there is the illusionary divine realm and the great emperor realm. Now, I finally know what the high ancestor's strength is. What strength? Longao was also very curious about the high ancestor's strength. After all, according to his grandfather, the high ancestor was invincible in the third-level Long family. He even entered the second-level Long family. In the end, if it wasn't for the Long family intervening, the high ancestor would have already become a divine realm martial artist. Others might not know what a divine realm martial artist was, but how could Longao not know? Titled Great Emperor. The high ancestor's title is the Tyrant Body, Great Emperor Batian. F***CK. What a domineering title. Not to mention the high ancestor's strength. Just this title alone was already amazing. Seventh brother, you're now a Void World King. I believe that with your talent, you'll soon be able to break through the Void World Emperor realm and even reach the illusionary divine realm. However, I want to tell you that we still have a long way to go. Nodding, Longao naturally knew what his big brother meant. Longao couldn't imagine if his big brother would be affected if he told him about the divine realm martial artist. After all, a titled Great Emperor wasn't the pinnacle existence. The true pinnacle existence was the divine realm martial artist. Longao didn't tell his big brother about the divine realm martial artist. Instead, he smiled and suddenly said, Big brother, I'd like to ask, based on the speed of your inheritance, how long would it take to break through the Great Emperor realm and even become a titled Great Emperor? If it was an ordinary titled Great Emperor's inheritance, it would take at least 10 years. I might not even succeed. However, the high ancestor's strength is too strong. There aren't any bottlenecks. Therefore, I'll be able to advance to the illusionary divine realm within a year. Within 3 years, I'll definitely be able to reach the Great Emperor realm. As for the titled Great Emperor realm, I don't know. Longao's heart thumped violently. He didn't expect his big brother's inheritance to be so fast. Reaching the illusionary divine realm within a year and becoming a great emperor within 3 years. If such a cultivation speed were to spread, many people would be envious. Longao didn't have the slightest bit of envy. Instead, he heaved a sigh of relief. Chapter 426. Seventh brother. What's wrong? Looking deeply at his brother, Longao said, Big brother, I'll leave the family to you in the future. Hearing this, Longing was shocked. He didn't know what was going on with his seventh brother. Impatient, Longing immediately asked, Seventh brother, what exactly happened? Just tell me, the family will face it with you. Longing knew that his seventh brother was the family's pillar and hope. No matter who was in trouble, even if he had received the ancestor's inheritance, he still couldn't be compared to his seventh brother. Longing knew that if it wasn't for his seventh brother, the family wouldn't be where it was today. Big brother, I'm fine. I won't hide it from you. After dealing with the matters of the 9 provinces, I'll leave the family head and search for Yu Yin's whereabouts. So that's how it is. Seventh brother, Yu Yin's letter was very clear. She will come back to find you. Why do you have to look for her? Where can you find her in the sea of people? Although that was the case, Longao had decided that no matter what happened, he would leave the sect and family to find Yuyin. After such a long time, Yuyin only sent a letter. With Tong Ling Er's words, Longao couldn't wait any longer and wanted to find Yuyin immediately. Longao didn't say anything, but Longing knew that his brother wouldn't change his mind under normal circumstances. Seventh brother, If there are no accidents, Yu Yin's master and Yu Yin's sect should be very powerful. If you go rashly, I'm afraid you'll be at a disadvantage. Big brother, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. After thinking, Longao continued, Big brother, after I leave, the family will be in your hands. Following that, Longao told all of the matters of the corpse slave army and the array formation to his elder brother. After listening, Longing sighed endlessly, seemingly finding it very hard to believe. According to Longao's original plan, he was prepared to move the family and sect to the city of Sin and the Dark Forest. However, the current situation was somewhat special. Longao had no choice but to change his mind. This time, the four great forces were wary of each other and had all retreated from the 9 states. Longao could imagine what the four great forces would do once he brought his sect and family into the spirit realm of the 9 states. There was no doubt that the four major forces would definitely think that he was preparing to chase after the 9 states spirit region. At that time, the four major forces would definitely join forces to deal with him. Once the four major forces used their original strength, the consequences would be unimaginable. Moreover, the dragon sect and the family were not very strong now. Even if they entered the spirit realm of the 9 states, it would be difficult for them to do so. It was precisely because of this that after thinking about it, Longao finally decided that it would be better to wait for the strength of the sect and family to become stronger before entering the spirit domain of the 9 regions. Following that, Longao told Long Ying how to open the array formation. Now that the Long clan had a titled great emperor like the Fire Qilin, they had the opportunity to look down on the 9 prefectures. No one would dare to provoke them. As long as the four major forces dared to attack, it was guaranteed that they would not be able to return alive. As for the sect, it had 5 illusionary divine stage martial artists. As long as the four major forces did not use any more powerful illusionary divine stage martial artists, the sect would be able to deal with them. Longao had already decided that when he broke through the illusionary divine stage and became a sage king, he would leave the sect and family to search for Yu Yin. No matter what difficulties he faced, he would find Yu Yin and bring her back. Strength. Longao was very clear that according to Tong Ling her sect was extremely strong. In order to ally with other sects, they even wanted to marry Yu Yin off. In other words, even if he could find Yu Yin, it would not be easy to bring Yu Yin away. Therefore, the higher the cultivation level and the stronger the strength, the higher the chances of bringing Yu Yin away. Longao had just returned to the dragon sect when he was stopped by Dugu Bai and Sheiji. He looked at the two of them curiously and did not know what they were trying to do. Hence, he asked, Brother Dugu, sister-in-law, what is the meaning of this? Humph, who's your sister-in-law? Oh, so you're not my sister-in-law. That's easy. Later on, I'll find 8 or 10 women for Brother Dugu. I believe many of them will be willing to be my sister-in-law. Ha ha ha. Sheiji stomped her feet in anger and said unhappily, Longao, let me tell you, if you lead him astray, I won't let you off. I lead him astray? I'm such a pure person. You're pure? Hearing Longao's words, Sheiji laughed maniacally. She laughed so hard that tears rolled down her cheeks. Her face was filled with disbelief. Seeing Sheiji in such a state, Longao and Dugu Bai shook their heads helplessly. Longao asked, Brother Dugu, I still have something to do. If you have something to say, just say it. Longao knew that Brother Dugu must have something to say. Otherwise, he would not have acted in such a manner. Master, I would like to marry Sheiji. I wonder if it's possible. F***ck. He cursed in his heart. Longao never expected that Brother Dugu would look for him for this matter. Longao naturally would not reject the two of them. He nodded and said in surprise, All right, no problem. When do you want to get married? 3 days later. So anxious. It's not that I'm anxious, it's that. Dugu Bai, if you dare to speak ill of me, I'll kick you to death. Dugu Bai jumped in fright. He did not even have the time to say goodbye to Longao before he turned and ran away. Sheiji clearly did not intend to let Dugu Bai off as she roared and chased after him. Looking at his enemy who had already disappeared, Longao helplessly shrugged his shoulders. However, in his heart, he was truly happy for Dugu Bai. However, when he thought of himself, he deeply sighed. If Yuan was here, then he could also complete the marriage between the two of them. Everything was nonsense. The most important thing was to find Yuan first. 3 days later, in the morning. Today was the biggest day in the dragon sect. This was because Elder Dugu Bai and Sheiji were going to get married. This was also the first time the dragon sect held a wedding banquet. Of course, it would be a grand occasion. Furthermore, everyone knew that Longao and Dugu Bai were brothers. With Longao's current status and strength, this wedding banquet could not be bad. In the main hall, "Have you searched everywhere?" "Master, we have searched everywhere. However, we still did not find any trace of Elder Sheiji." Hearing this, Dugu Bai, who had been forcefully suppressing his emotions, exploded. This was because the bride was missing on the day of the wedding? Putting aside whether this matter would be embarrassing or not, Dugu Bai would not be able to stand it. He did not know what had happened and why Sheiji had suddenly disappeared. Dugu Bai did not believe that Sheiji would leave at the last minute. If she was not willing to get married to him, there was no need for her to do all this. Could something have happened to Sheiji? Thinking about it, he felt that it was unlikely. After all, Sheiji's strength was obvious. How many half-saints could take Sheiji away without a trace? Chapter 427. Brother Dugu, don't be impatient. I'll be back soon. After finding the 4 sovereigns, strictly speaking, the 4 sovereigns should be the 4 half-saints. Longao went straight to the point and asked, "Have you seen Sheiji?" The 4 seemed to have guessed it. Luo Tian took out a letter and handed it to Longao. "Master, Sheiji left this before she left." Longao didn't open it. No matter what, he was only Dugu Bai's brother and not Dugu Bai himself. There were some things that he couldn't replace. Longao returned to the hall and handed the letter to Dugu Bai. He stood aside quietly. He didn't know why, but he had a bad feeling. "Brother Dugu, what's wrong?" Seeing Dugu Bai's face getting more and more serious and gloomy, Longao had already guessed that this matter was going to be troublesome. After receiving the letter from Brother Dugu, Longao took a glance and sighed deeply. It turned out that Sheiji wasn't an ordinary person. She was the sister of Misty Palace's palace lord. It was just that she didn't want to reveal this identity. According to the letter, Sheiji originally wanted to marry Dugu Bai and live out the rest of her life peacefully. However, Misty Palace's palace lord sent news that if she dared to marry Dugu Bai, Misty Palace would kill Dugu Bai regardless of the price. Fearing that something would happen to Dugu Bai, Sheiji could only choose to compromise. In the end, she left Dragon Sect and returned to Misty Palace. "Brother Dugu, what are you going to do?" Seeing how Dugu Bai left, Longao was shocked. Longao could obviously guess where Dugu Bai wanted to go, but could this really solve the problem? "Even if I die, I will bring Sheiji back." "Brother Dugu, you and I both know the strength of Misty Palace. Can you really do it alone?" Dugu Bai also knew the strength of Misty Palace, but would he really choose to give up? He couldn't. He really couldn't. Even if he could, he had to bring Sheiji back, no matter how difficult the path ahead was. "Brother Long, I must do this. If you're my brother, then don't try to persuade me, okay?" "Ha ha ha, Big Brother Dugu, I'm not trying to persuade you. Since you admit that I'm your brother, I'll go with you. Let alone the ethereal palace, even if it's a mountain of swords or a sea of flames. So what?" Hearing Long Ao's words, Dugu Bai's body suddenly trembled. Long Ao wanted to accompany him. Could he really agree? With regards to Long Ao and his sect, Dugu Bai was very clear about it. If it was just a small fight, it would still be fine. But once they were to fall out with Misty Palace, then the sect would definitely lose. After all, Misty Palace's strength and foundation were right there for all to see. Brothers should share blessings and misfortunes together. However, in the hearts of Dugu Bai and Long Ao, they were brothers. They shared blessings and misfortunes. This was what true brothers were like. Thinking of this, Dugu Bai smiled gratefully and said, "Brother Long, it's worth it for me, Dugu Bai, to have a brother like you." Looking at Long Ao and Dugu Bai in front of them, everyone was moved. This was a true friend, a true brother. Ouyang Fei especially felt very guilty when he saw this situation. Once upon a time, If Brother Long had treated him like this, then what about him? Ouyang Fei was very clear in his heart that as long as he put his heart into it, there would be a day when he could exchange for the lost friendship, which was the so-called brotherhood. Big Brother Du. Waving his hand, Dugu Bai didn't give Longao any chance to speak and said, Brother Long, if you treat me as a brother, then there's no need to talk about this anymore. I'll go to Misty Palace alone. Regardless of life or death, I'll be with Sheiji. If you help me, even if I can bring Sheiji back, I'll feel guilty for the rest of my life. Brother Long, please fulfill my wish. Staring at Dugu Bai in front of him, Longao seemed to want to say something, but in the end, he didn't say anything. He nodded and said, a brother for life. No matter when, call me. Not to mention Misty Palace, even if it's a Long family, I'll beat them without hesitation. Longao's bold words made everyone around excited. At this moment, everyone admired Longao very much. How many people wouldn't want to have a brother like this? In a short while, the servants brought in a lot of good wine. Without using bowls, Longao and Dugu Bai each had a jar. The two of them got to know each other. Suddenly, the two of them laughed out loud. Everything happened in silence. The two of them didn't say anything. Suddenly, the two of them began to drink. Everyone around seemed to be affected by this brotherhood. One by one, they began to drink. The wedding was originally going well, but because of Misty Palace's interference, it ended unhappily. After drinking 3 full jars, Dugu Bai left. Looking at the disappearing figure, Longao found Long Patian and said directly, Brother Patian, help me keep an eye on Brother Dugu. Don't show yourself. If Misty Palace dares to do anything to Brother Dugu, tell me immediately. Got it. Long Patian didn't dare to hesitate. He immediately brought the two of them and followed. Dugu Bai and Long Patian weren't on the same level. Therefore, Dugu Bai didn't know that someone was following behind him. In the entire hall, only Longao was left standing quietly. No one dared to disturb him, because everyone knew that Longao was really angry because of Dugu Bai. It was only because of Dugu Bai that he didn't want to do anything. However, anyone could guess that Longao was like a lion that was about to explode. He could explode at any moment. If Dugu Bai and Sheiji were to be fine, it would be fine. However, if something were to happen to them, everyone could imagine what the Grandmaster would do. He would definitely kill his way into the ethereal palace. He stood there quietly and didn't say a word, but Longao's face was extremely ugly. Creak. Get out. Longao's voice was extremely cold. But not only did this person not leave, he entered the hall. Seeing that it was Aoshue, Longao's gloomy face finally revealed a smile. He sighed deeply and said, What do you think I should do? Looking at Longao, Aoshue's heart ached to the extreme. Because Longao had suffered too much, everyone could only see the glorious side of Longao. But how many people could truly see the side of Longao that he had endured? Lover, family, brothers, friends. Longao had to take care of them all. Even Ouyang Fei, who had betrayed him, Longao chose to let bygones be bygones. How many people in the world could do that? Brother Ao, you have suffered too much. Don't take it all on yourself. You are not a savior. You can't take care of everyone. My heart aches for you. Do you understand? Coming in front of Longao, Aoshue's heart ached. She gently held Longao's hands and looked at them quietly. Chapter 428. Since we are living in this world, we can't take care of ourselves. You have to bear everything by yourself. My heart aches for you. Do you understand? Aoshue, I believe you and I both know what ethereal palace means. With Brother Dugu's strength alone, it is impossible to shake it. Therefore, I am prepared to go to ethereal palace. Although she already knew the result, Aoshue was still shocked when she heard Longao say it himself. Just as Longao had said, she was very clear about what the Misty Palace represented. As one of the 4 major forces of the 9-state spirit domain, although Dragon Sect had heavily damaged the 4 major forces several times, Aoshue knew that Ethereal Palace's foundation and strength were very small. It was countless times stronger than what was shown. If Longao really went to Ethereal Palace, the consequences would be unimaginable. I know I can't persuade you, but let me tell you, I want to go too. No. Without even thinking, Longao refused directly. What a joke. This trip to Ethereal Palace would definitely lead to a battle. If he couldn't take care of Aoshue and something went wrong, he would regret it for the rest of his life. No matter what happened, Aoshue couldn't go. His family couldn't go. His friends couldn't go. No one could go. Me. All right, I have made up my mind. 3 days later, I will go to Ethereal Palace alone. I want to see what kind of foundation Ethereal Palace has. This time, Longao was prepared to bring the corpse slave army to Ethereal Palace. As for the 4 half-saints, he didn't bring any of them, because Longao knew that the 4 half-saints were the pillars of the sect. If any of them were lost, the sect would be in trouble in the future. Even if he really died in Ethereal Palace, at least the sect still had the 4 half-saints. They wouldn't die immediately. Just as Aoshue said, Longao had too much to bear. You want to go to Ethereal Palace alone? Aoshue exclaimed. She never thought that Longao would really go to Ethereal Palace alone. As for Longao's thoughts, how could Aoshue not know? No, let me tell you clearly. I won't agree. Father and mother won't agree. The sect won't agree. The family won't agree. No one will agree. Aoshue, listen to me. No, I'm not listening to you. Anyway, if we're going together. If not, we're not going. You can't go alone. Before Aoshue finished speaking, she fainted. Gently carrying Aoshue, Longao handed Aoshue over to his mother. After Dugubai and Sheiji's wedding, everyone from the Long family had rushed to the dragon sect. Mother, you have to take good care of Aoshue these few days. I have something to do. Mu Lin and Long Yi were not fools. Long Haosher, Wang Yidao, and Mu Wanfeng were not fools either. The 5 of them knew what Longao was going to do. Because of this, their faces were extremely solemn. Ao, what are you going to do? Longao did not hide anything from the 5 of them. He said, I will kill my way to Ethereal Palace. You alone? Longao nodded his head and said, I'm alone. Dugubai is my brother. No matter what happens, I'll give him a hand. As for the sect and the family, they must develop well. Even if something happens to me, nothing can happen to you. Otherwise, I won't be able to die in peace. Mu Lin almost fainted when she heard her son's words. Ao, can you not go? The 5 of them did not want Longao to go to Ethereal Palace. After all, they knew what Ethereal Palace represented. If Ao went to Ethereal Palace alone, it would not bode well for him. However, the 5 of them knew Ao's character very well. Could they stop Ao? Longao smiled and said firmly, Grandfather, Grandpa Wang, Grandma, Father, Mother, Dugubai is my brother. I will not shirk my duty. Brothers should share blessings and misfortunes. If I do not share blessings and misfortunes, am I still human? Without waiting for the 5 to speak, Longao continued, no matter if it's my family, my lover, or my brother. No matter who is in trouble, I will do this, and I must do this. Don't worry, I will be fine. This time, I will bring the corpse slave army to the Misty Palace. Corpse slave army. Of course, the 5 of them knew about the corpse slave army. As an undead army, the reason why Dragon Sect could dominate the 9 continents was because of the corpse slave army. If it was any other place, the 5 of them would not be worried. However, Longao was going to deal with Ethereal Palace, one of the 4 major forces. The 4 major forces chose to avoid it, but it did not mean that they were afraid of Dragon Sect. Moreover, Ao was going to kill them. If Ethereal Palace could still tolerate it, then Ethereal Palace could go to hell. Regarding the 5 people's worries, Longao naturally knew clearly, but on the surface, he had to appear extremely calm. Don't worry, I will be fine. At most, I will bring Big Brother Qilin to Ethereal Palace. You should believe in Big Brother Qilin's strength. Fire Qilin? Hearing that Fire Qilin was going to follow Ao to Ethereal Palace, the 5 of them heaved a sigh of relief. They knew Fire Qilin's strength. However, Long Haosher still said, Ao, be careful. Remember, no matter what happens, you must protect your own life. As the saying goes, revenge is a dish best served cold. Nodding, Longao suddenly smiled and said, Grandfather, don't worry. You don't have to worry about me. Everyone said that I couldn't do it, but I still destroyed Blood Sea Sect and severely damaged the four major forces. I have a lot of secrets. This time, I will only bring Big Brother Dugu and Sheiji to Ethereal Palace. I believe Ethereal Palace will not make things difficult for me. They really won't? Even Longao himself did not believe this. However, in order to let the five of them be completely at ease, he could only say this and had to say this. Longao spent a few hours before he finally convinced the five of them to bring Ao Shui away from the sect and return to the family. Because in the Long family, with the Fire Qilin overseeing it, he believed that ordinary people would not be able to harm the family. It was still the same saying. He had to bear everything by himself. A man should be like this. He had to let his family, brothers, and lovers have no worries. It was because of this that Longao urgently wanted to possess great strength. Longao did not immediately head to Ethereal Palace. He was waiting for news from Long Patian. If Ethereal Palace could help Big Brother Dugu and Sheiji, then everything would be fine. If they did not and made things difficult for the two of them, then it would not be too late for him to take action. This battle, if he could avoid it, then he would avoid it. If he could not avoid it, then he would fight. The matter of Dragon Sects Dugu Bai and Sheiji spread across the entire 9 states. Everyone was looking forward to seeing what Longao would do and whether he would stand up for his brothers. P.S. The 10 chapters have finally arrived. Little 9 is really tired. He has been busy going to Shanghai for the past few days, so his update is a little late. Everyone, please forgive him. Chapter 429. Ethereal Palace, one of the 4 major forces. Ethereal Palace was located in Ethereal Peak. The terrain was dangerous and ordinary people could not reach the peak of Ethereal Peak. At this moment, Dugu Bai's figure suddenly appeared at the foot of Ethereal Peak. He took a deep look at the peak before him. Without any hesitation, he stepped towards the peak. 6 hours later, Ethereal Peak, Back Mountain. Brother, I beg you to let him go. Slap. Before Sheiji could finish her words, the Snake Emperor slapped her across the face. As the Palace Lord of the Ethereal Palace, the Snake Emperor's cultivation had only reached the so-called peak of the World Emperor realm. He was only 1 step away from the Half-Saint realm. However, a Palace Master was still a Palace Master. Sheiji's cultivation was much higher than her brother's, but she did not dare to fight back. As the saying goes, the elder brother is the father. He would never do such a rebellious thing. Sheiji, I have made a huge mistake. Dugu Bai is from Dragon Sect. Ethereal Palace and Dragon Sect are like fire and water. Do you want to become a traitor of Ethereal Palace? Although the Ethereal Palace had withdrawn from the 9 states, the Snake Emperor had always been brooding over it. No matter what, Longao had killed many experts of the Ethereal Palace. If this debt was not settled, how could he explain it to the Ethereal Palace? Because of this, Snake Emperor could not tolerate his sister marrying a disciple of Dragon Sect. Snake Emperor, Sheiji and I are truly in love. Love my ass. Dugu Bai, I advise you to give up. Since you are here today, there is no need for you to leave. Dugu Bai was covered in blood as he was hung on the stone wall. Both his hands and feet were tied tightly. At this moment, Dugu Bai was in a miserable state. Brother, I want to be with him for all eternity. Life or death. Humph. Since that is the case, go to hell. As they spoke, the 2 elders tied Sheiji to the stone wall as well. This unfortunate couple was half a meter away from each other but could not hold hands. They could only look at each other affectionately. Ha ha ha, I would like to see if Longao would come for your brother. Hearing this, Dugu Bai and Sheiji's bodies trembled violently. The 2 of them were no fools. They instantly understood the Ethereal Palace's intention. Originally, the Snake Emperor had purposely lured Longao here in order to lure him here and then kill him. The 4 major forces had been severely injured by Longao over and over again. The 4 major forces knew clearly that they had lost all their face. It was precisely because of this that the Ethereal Palace had to do this. They wanted to regain their face and tell the world that the Ethereal Palace was the strongest. Snake Emperor, the sect master will not come. I advise you to give up on that idea. Ha ha ha, It's not up to you to decide whether Longao will come or not. I'd like to see if this master of the dragon sect, who is rumored to be loyal and affectionate, is really Brother Gu. Dugu Bai's heart sank to the extreme. He only wanted to take Sheiji away and did not think of anything else, especially this point. The reason why the Ethereal Palace did this was because they wanted to go against the master. If it were anyone else, Dugu Bai might not have had the confidence. But if it was the master, he was 100% sure that the moment the master knew about his current situation, he would definitely kill his way to the Ethereal Palace. But one had to know that the Ethereal Palace and the Bloodsea sect were not on the same level. The master could destroy the Bloodsea sect, but he could not destroy the Ethereal Palace. If he were to come, he would most likely die. As a brother, Dugu Bai really did not want to implicate his brother. What should he do? At this moment, Dugu Bai was praying in his heart that Brother Long would not come. Otherwise, even if he were to die, he would not be able to rest in peace. Below the Ethereal Palace, looking at how Dugu Bai had gone up and not come down for a full 12 hours, Long Patian knew that things were not looking good. Not daring to be careless, Long Patian turned around and left hurriedly, prepared to report this matter to the master. But at this moment, the figure of the Snake Emperor suddenly appeared. Since you're here, wouldn't it be a little unreasonable if you don't leave something behind? Looking at the sudden appearance of the Snake Emperor, Long Potion's face was extremely gloomy. He knew the strength of the Snake Emperor very well. Moreover, there were two sage-to-be martial artists beside the Snake Emperor. Snake Emperor, Dugu Bai and Sheiji are truly in love. It's a little unreasonable for you to block them. Moreover, if you agree to their marriage, my sect has said that from today onwards, the grudges between the Ethereal Palace and the Dragon Sect will be written off. Moreover, we can even form an alliance to fight against the three major forces. How about it? Alliance? Your Dragon Sect wants to form an alliance with us? Wahahaha, wahahaha. Hearing this, the Snake Emperor laughed maniacally as if he had heard the funniest thing in the world. On one side was the three major forces, and on the other side was the Dragon Sect. How would the Snake Emperor choose? Without a doubt, the Snake Emperor would definitely choose the three major forces. Although the Dragon Sect had dealt a heavy blow to the four major forces, the Long family, Nether Mansion, and Imperial City's foundation and strength were all there. There was no doubt that the Dragon Sect could not compete with the three major forces. The reason why the Snake Emperor opposed the marriage between Dugu Bai and Sheiji was to lure the Longao here and deal with him. Firstly, it was to regain his face. Secondly, it was to tell the world that the Ethereal Palace was the strongest among the four major forces. In the end, the Ethereal Palace was not afraid of the Dragon Sect at all. That was why the Snake Emperor was so confident. Long Patian, I originally planned to leave you here and let the Longao come to pick you up personally. But if that's the case, there will be no one to pass on the message for me. How about this? I'll cripple you first and send you back to the Dragon Sect. Long Patian was not a fool. Of course, he knew the Snake Emperor's intention. He wanted to lure the master here and deal with the master. Knowing this, Long Patian would not give the Snake Emperor a chance. He turned around and prepared to leave. Trying to leave? Long Potion's lips curled into a cold smile. Long Potion's strength was not a match for two saints. Before he could figure out what was going on, he was knocked to the ground. Then, the Snake Emperor personally took action and crippled Long Potion's elixir field. In other words, Long Patian was a cripple from now on. He could not continue to cultivate. Not only that, the Snake Emperor broke Long Potion's arms and legs. He did not leave himself any way out. In fact, the Snake Emperor had already decided to fight to the death with the Dragon Sect. Back then, the Longao had repeatedly damaged the Ethereal Palace. The Snake Emperor did not care who was right or wrong. In any case, the Longao had embarrassed the Ethereal Palace. You guys send Long Patian back to the Dragon Sect. Remember, don't go against the Longao. I want to lure him to the Ethereal Palace and deal with him personally. I want to see how strong the legendary Longao is. He. The Longao will die in the hands of the Ethereal Palace in the end. Chapter 430. Dragon Sect, Great Hall. Looking at the unconscious Long Patian on the ground, the entire Great Hall was silent. No one dared to speak. Longao wasn't as angry as expected. He stood there quietly and stared at Long Patian on the ground. In the ethereal palace, Longao was well aware of the Snake Emperor's intentions. He just wanted to lure Longao over. Master. Waving his hand, Longao sneered, "From now on, no one is allowed to disturb me. Anyone who disobeys will be killed without mercy." Everyone was shocked. No one had ever seen the master like this. It was so scary. Everyone was trembling with fear. But after thinking about it, they understood. After all, Long Patian and the master were close. Now that Long Patian was in such a state, how could the master not be angry? Holding Long Potion's body, Longao left the Great Hall. Back Mountain Forbidden Area. This was where Longao usually cultivated. No one was allowed to enter. Longfu, is there a way to save Brother Patian? His dantian was destroyed and his arms and legs were broken. Under normal circumstances, Long Patian would definitely become a cripple. But Longao didn't agree. No matter what happened, he had to save Brother Patian. Shaking his head, Longfu helplessly said, "There is no way." His heart sank. Is there really no way at all? His arms and legs can be restored, but his dantian is damaged. There is only one way to restore it. Speak. Longao was overjoyed when he heard that Longfu had a way to heal Long Potion's worries. He couldn't wait any longer. After all, it was his mistake that caused Long Patian to become like this. If Long Patian couldn't recover, he would feel guilty for the rest of his life. Master, this person's dantian is damaged. It is impossible to restore it, but I can transplant the dantian of a spirit beast to him. As for the effect, I can't guarantee. Nodding, Longao said, "No matter what, let's first restore Big Brother Potion's dantian." "Oh right. What grade of spirit beast dantian do you need?" "Master, with the current strength of the Dragon Seal space, I can at most help one person transplant their dantian. The success rate is only 80%. Since you've chosen, then give him a better one." "I understand." Without wasting any time, Longao led the 4 half-sages into the dark forest. It took them 3 days and 3 nights to slay a half-sage spirit beast. Without any hesitation, they returned to the sect and handed over their dantian region to Longfu. Although Longfu didn't say much, Longao was very clear that transplanting the dantian wasn't an easy task. Otherwise, Longfu wouldn't be so serious. He sent the Holy Beast and Long Patian into the Dragon Seal space. At this moment, Longao's fury completely exploded. He led the Corpse Demon army and prepared to charge into the ethereal palace. "Master, we won't go with you." The 4 half-sages knew very well what the ethereal palace represented. If the master went alone, who knew what would happen? They were all half-sages. At the very least, they could help the master. Waving his hand, Longao sneered and said, "This is my ethereal palace's personal grudge. It has nothing to do with you. You just have to help me take care of the sect." Before the 4 half-sages could say anything, Longao said, "This matter is decided. Remember, no matter who it is, no one is allowed to take a step out of the sect." "Yes, master." The 4 half-sages sighed deeply in their hearts. They knew the master's personality very well. He liked to bear everything by himself and never implicated the people around him. Even if he knew that there was a tiger in the mountain, he still went to the mountain. Longao didn't set off immediately. Instead, he left all the Corpse Demon army in the sect. After thinking about it, Longao finally decided not to take the Corpse Demon army with him. This trip to the ethereal palace boded ill rather than well. Who knew if he could leave alive this time? If the Corpse Demon army was lost in vain, what would happen to the sect in the future? Thinking of this, Longao decided not to take any Corpse Demon with him and prepared to go to the ethereal palace alone. In the 9 states, whether it was the ordinary spirit region or the spirit region of the 9 states, everyone was looking forward to Longao's trip to the ethereal palace. But most people still thought that Longao wouldn't go. The reason was simple. As one of the 4 major forces, the ethereal palace had strength and foundation. Unless Longao wanted to die, he wouldn't go to the ethereal palace at all. But just when everyone thought that Longao wouldn't go to the ethereal palace, Longao arrived at the foot of the ethereal peak alone. Looking at the ethereal peak in front of him, Longao walked towards the ethereal peak. The ethereal peak was already surrounded by spies. When Longao appeared, countless forces already knew about it. While they were shocked, they seemed to be used to it. After all, it wasn't the first time that Longao had done something like this. Longao walked in the ethereal peak and felt very surprised, because along the way, he didn't see a single person. Longao had already guessed that the ethereal palace lured him here to deal with him. Since that was the case, why didn't he see a single person? Could it be that the ethereal palace was playing some tricks again? He didn't know if the ethereal palace did it on purpose. Longao came directly to the back of the mountain. Looking at the two people who were fixed on the stone wall, Longao's face instantly turned cold. His entire body exploded with killing intent and spread in all directions. Ethereal Palace. Just as Longao was about to rescue the two people, Dugabai suddenly shouted out in horror, "Brother Long, be careful." Before Longao could react, he was struck by a laser beam. He flew backwards, spitting out a mouthful of blood. His face was pale, but Longao still forcibly stood up and flipped over. But before he could catch his breath, the laser beam shot towards him again. He didn't dare to be careless and immediately turned to dodge. He had to admit that Longao's speed was indeed fast. Even if the laser beam was fast, wanting to catch up to him wasn't an easy matter. Papa, Papa. At this time, the Snake Emperor walked out with two half-step saints clapping their hands. He sneered and said, "Longao is indeed Longao. To be able to dodge it isn't simple at all. But I am very puzzled. You are just a little world king. So how did you manage to kill a world emperor?" With regards to this, let alone the Snake Emperor, even the others were puzzled. Did he really rely on that heaven-shaking saber strike? Longao ignored the Snake Emperor. He glanced at the two people, especially the heavily wounded Dugu Bai. He suppressed his killing intent and coldly said, "Snake Emperor, you just wanted to lure me here. I'm already standing here, so let them go." "Why? Who do you think you are? Do you really think you are invincible under the heavens?" "Longao, I can clearly tell you that in my eyes, you are not even a fart." Chapter 431. Nodding his head, Longao said in agreement, "Indeed, I'm not even a fart. You're a fart." Snake Emperor's face changed. He did not expect Lin Fan to be so arrogant even when he was at death's door. He really didn't know what was good for him. Before Snake Emperor could speak, Longao had already said, "Let them go. Otherwise, from now on, Dragon Sect and Ethereal Palace will not rest until one of us is dead. Not rest until one of us is dead." If the third-grade Long family, Serene Hell Mansion, or Imperial City had said such words, Snake Emperor might have been afraid. However, Longao had never been in his eyes. From the beginning to the end, Snake Emperor did not take Longao seriously at all. This time, Snake Emperor had finally lured Longao here. How could he choose to give up so easily? "Longao, if you can leave here alive today, Ethereal Palace will no longer go against you. How about it?" Unwilling to let them go? Longao's heart instantly became heavy. No matter what, this was the Ethereal Palace. Not to mention other forces, just the two half-saint warriors by the Snake Emperor's side were not people he could deal with. Looking coldly at Snake Emperor, Longao suddenly said, "In the future, I will definitely destroy Ethereal Palace." "Destroy Ethereal Palace? With just you?" "Ha ha ha ha." Hearing Longao's words, the three of them laughed crazily as if they had heard the funniest thing in the world. In a short while, the disciples of Ethereal Palace swarmed over. There were at least 1,000 of them. All the disciples of the Ethereal Palace hated Longao very much because it was this person who had repeatedly inflicted heavy losses on the sect, causing the sect to completely lose face. One by one, they mocked him. If it was in the outer sect, would these people of Ethereal Palace still dare to mock Longao like this? They were just a dog relying on its master's power. Longao ignored the mocking around and looked coldly at the three people in front of him. He said, "The end of Blood Sea Sect will be the end of Ethereal Palace. Die." The Snake Emperor did not continue to talk nonsense. In order to show his strength and dignity as a palace master, the Snake Emperor chose to take action personally this time. When Longao had killed 4 world emperors with a single slash, Snake Emperor had never believed it. After all, the difference between a world king and a world emperor was simply too great. They were not existences on the same level. The Snake Emperor was very fast. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of Longao. He attacked with a ruthless palm. The two of them didn't use any weapons, because at their cultivation level, unless it was a powerful weapon, it was practically useless. As for why Longao didn't use the blood-sucking frenzy blade, he kept it for later because he knew very well that the strength of the Ethereal Palace was far from what he saw now, and the blood-sucking frenzy blade was his trump card. The two of them instantly engaged in a fierce battle. After 3 moves, it was a draw. Everyone was shocked by Longao's strength. This was because everyone could feel that Longao was only a World King martial artist. As for their master, he was actually a true World King master. A World King could contend with a World King? Regardless of whether others believed it or not, the disciples of the Ethereal Palace would never believe it. However, Longao didn't dare to be careless. He fiercely punched out with both his fists, Divine Dragon Arm and Hell Tiger Arm, one punch after another. Moreover, Longao completely ignored the Snake Emperor's attacks. With the protection of the Sacred Desolation Body, as long as his opponent wasn't an illusionary divine martial artist, he would be able to ignore the attacks of all illusionary divine martial artists. In a head-on clash, the Snake Emperor was shocked by Longao's physical defense. He also knew that it was impossible for him to break through Longao's defense. If this continued, he would be at a disadvantage sooner or later. However, Longao didn't give him any chance at all. Punch after punch, Longao's speed was extremely fast. One move contained 100 moves. Every punch was like a ferocious tiger descending the mountain. Its power was astonishing. Longao also knew that it was impossible for him to kill the Snake Emperor with his Divine Dragon Arm and Hell Tiger Arm. Moreover, the Snake Emperor was Sheiji's elder brother. If he really killed the Snake Emperor, he would have to face Sheiji in the future. On the stone wall, Sheiji and Duguobai were in agony. Longao had come alone for the two of them. They didn't know if he was still alive or not. Sheiji was even more aware that the Snake Emperor was her elder brother. She believed that if they fought, Longao would have some scruples. Longao, the Snake Emperor is no longer my elder brother. Longao, who was in the middle of a battle, heard Sheiji's words and instantly knew what she meant. Longao's face turned cold. His entire body suddenly erupted with the aura of heaven and earth. He also released his own desolation domain. The Snake Emperor was not to be outdone and also released his own domain. The biggest difference between a World King and a World Emperor was that a World Emperor could break the domain released by a World King. It was because of this that the Snake Emperor directly attacked Longao's domain. He was prepared to break it and then use the domain to kill Longao. If it was an ordinary World King martial artist, it would be impossible for them to withstand the Snake Emperor's attack. However, the Snake Emperor was facing Longao, a demon who had condensed the desolation domain. There was no response. The Snake Emperor didn't seem to believe this. He continued to attack, but the result was the same. Just what had happened? Had his opponent's cultivation broken through to the World Emperor realm? Impossible. The Snake Emperor directly denied this guess. This was because he could clearly feel that his opponent's strength hadn't broken through to the World Emperor realm. If that was the case, then why couldn't he break through his opponent's domain? Longao's situation completely confused the Snake Emperor. However, the Snake Emperor certainly wouldn't show mercy. He continued to fiercely attack the domain, trying to break through it. But in the end, he still couldn't break through. He sneered in his heart. Longao had complete confidence in his desolation domain. According to Long Fu, the desolation domain stood above all other domains. No matter who it was, they would not be able to break through his desolation domain. Just this point alone was enough to make the desolation domain domineering. The Snake Emperor couldn't break through Longao's domain. Moreover, the domain that he released was also suppressed by Longao. In this way, the Snake Emperor's initial advantage was slowly being reversed. Longao used the Desolation domain to suppress the Snake Emperor, causing the Snake Emperor to be depressed. He was probably the most depressed World Emperor expert in the world. A World Emperor expert being suppressed by another expert. If this news were to spread, no one would believe it. The Snake Emperor wasn't a fool. Of course, he knew that it was impossible for him to defeat his opponent under such circumstances. It was also because of this that the Snake Emperor retreated step by step, wanting to withdraw from the battle. No matter what, this was the Ethereal Palace, his headquarters. Any sage to be sent here could kill his opponent in an instant. Since that was the case, why should he continue to fight to the death with his opponent? The Snake Emperor wanted to retreat, but Longao certainly wouldn't agree. The power of heaven and earth suppressed him fiercely. Moreover, he used his self-created martial technique, sorrow of heaven and earth. His entire body was like a tornado, spinning wildly. Chapter 432. Strictly speaking, the martial technique Heaven and Earth Sorrow was also Longao's trump card. According to Longao's original intention, he was prepared to use the complete sorrow of the heavens and earth when he was dealing with a semi-sage martial artist. However, once the Snake Emperor withdrew, it would be much more difficult for him to continue to seize the opportunity. Longao was like a strong tornado. Before the Snake Emperor could react, he was swept away by the tornado and disappeared. Everyone was shocked. Although the two half-step sages were shocked, they still managed to control themselves. This was a fair battle between the Palace Master and Longao. If they were to act rashly before the outcome of the battle was decided, it would be counterproductive and they would become the laughing stock of the world. Within the tornado, Longao's force of heaven and earth suppressed the Snake Emperor, following which, he continued to attack the Snake Emperor. At this stage, the Snake Emperor did not take Longao seriously. He thought that he could definitely defeat Longao and started to attack even more crazily. Stubborn. Longao did not want to waste any more time. He took out his blood-sucking frenzy blade and attacked. Longao did not use his blood-sucking frenzy blade as he wanted to give the Snake Emperor a chance. After all, the Snake Emperor was Sheiji's elder brother. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Longao did not want to kill the Snake Emperor. However, at this stage, he had no other choice. As a result, the seventh style of blood-sucking frenzy blade, tearing heaven and earth, shot towards the Snake Emperor along with the tornado. Force of heaven and earth, blood blade technique, barren tyrant body, and barren territory. After combining all of these, Longao was almost invincible among those below the illusionary divine stage. In other words, Longao could be considered as the most powerful person below the illusionary divine stage. Longao was extremely powerful. If the Snake Emperor was hit by his blade, it was obvious what would happen to the Snake Emperor. However, just as the surrounding space was about to be split open and the Snake Emperor was about to be swallowed by the saber light, Longao arrived in front of the Snake Emperor at the fastest speed. Without hesitation, Longao suddenly smashed out the divine dragon arm, and a fist smashed right on the opponent's dantian. It was impossible to kill the Snake Emperor. Even if he did not care about Sheiji, he had to take Big Brother Dugu into consideration. It was precisely because of this that Longao ultimately chose to cripple the Snake Emperor's cultivation and dantian. This was considered the best method. A blood-curdling scream rang out. Then, the Snake Emperor's body was violently smashed by Longao's fist. If it weren't for the two sage-to-be experts' quick reflexes, it was likely that this punch alone would have been enough to smash the Snake Emperor into a half-cripple. Seeing her brother sent flying by Longao's punch, Sheiji's face was filled with extreme fear. Snake Emperor would always be her biological brother. This was something that could never be changed. But soon, Sheiji heaved a sigh of relief because she realized that Longao did not kill her brother. He had only crippled her brother's dantian and cultivation. Longao, how dare you cripple my dantian? Suppressing the waves of weakness that came from his body, the Snake Emperor was still unable to accept it. He had never thought that the other party would actually cripple his Dantian. What did it mean to have his Dantian crippled? In other words, from now on, he would no longer be able to cultivate. If that was the case, not to mention killing Longao, it would be a huge problem for him to retain his position as the palace master. For Sheiji's sake, I'll spare your life. But crippling your Dantian is your punishment. If you dare to do it again, don't blame me for being merciless and killing you. Longao had already done his utmost. If it weren't for Dugu Bai and Sheiji, he wouldn't have given the Snake Emperor any chance. The Snake Emperor's face was extremely gloomy and ugly. His body was on the verge of collapse and his face was extremely pale. If it weren't for the two semi-sage experts supporting him, he would have fallen to the ground. Kill this person for me. Of course, the two semi-sages wouldn't join forces to deal with Longao. As semi-sages, they had their dignity. If they joined forces to deal with Longao, where would their dignity go if news of this got out? At this moment, an old martial artist walked out from the two semi-sage experts. He looked to be in his 50s or 60s. He walked as if he was flying, and in the blink of an eye, he was already in front of Longao. Terrifying Saint powers swarmed towards Longao like endless waves. Everyone was stunned by Longao's actions. No one had expected Longao to not only defeat the palace master, but also cripple his Dantian. Was Longao out of his mind? They couldn't help but admire Longao's courage. To be so arrogant in the ethereal palace, he was simply courting death. Longao didn't dare to be careless. After all, Wang Gu was a true illusionary divine martial artist, even if he was only a semi-sage. Although it seemed like a light palm, it was actually extremely powerful. Longao also wanted to try and see if he could withstand a palm strike from a sage-level martial artist with his current strength. The Dragon God's arm and Hell Tiger's arm merged into one and punched out fiercely. Boom! The two fists collided and Longao's body was sent flying. Wang Gu did not give Longao the slightest chance. His entire person once again charged out. What a shock! Longao also didn't expect a semi-sage expert to be so powerful. He endured the pain in his body and turned around. He didn't continue to fight with Wang Gu but went around him. However, Wang Gu obviously didn't want to give him a chance and punched out fiercely. All the exits were sealed. This meant that Longao only had two options. The first option was to fight with Wang Gu head-on. The second option was to barge through, but the chances of him dying were very high. Longao eventually chose to fight head-on. However, Longao wasn't a fool and wouldn't act rashly. Innate divine ability, Dragon's Roar. In the end, Longao was prepared to use his trump card, which was the innate divine ability that he had just obtained, Dragon's Roar. Longao didn't know how powerful the innate divine ability that he had obtained from his bloodline was, as this was the first time he had used it. As for its power, the Dragon's Roar resounded. Just when everyone didn't know what was going on, a huge divine dragon shadow suddenly appeared behind Longao. The terrifying dragon might spread out in all directions, and the dragon breath suppressed everyone to the point that they couldn't breathe. The innate divine ability of a dragon martial artist. Whether it was Wang Gu or Snake Emperor, they were completely stunned. The two of them had never thought that Longao was not only a dragon martial artist, but also a dragon martial artist. The three of them were very clear about what a Long family's innate divine ability represented. Innate divine ability was not something that everyone could reproduce. According to legends, in order to reproduce innate divine ability, the bloodline in the body must be pure, 1 in 10,000. And every dragon warrior, once they reproduce innate divine ability, their strength will increase exponentially, and they will become the treasure of the Long clan, and receive the Long clan's important nurturing. Could it be that Longao had already gone to the Long clan and received the baptism in the ancestral hall? Chapter 433. Innate Spirit Ability, Dragon Roar. After the terrifying dragon breath enveloped everyone, everyone was shocked to find that their bodies had been frozen. Even the flow of time around them had changed. If it were the God Sealing Pearl or the God Punishing Mirror, it would be almost impossible to freeze a half-step sage. However, the innate spirit ability was different. Its power was far superior to the God-punishing mirror and the God-sealing pearl. Longao didn't deal with the others. According to the power of the innate spirit ability, Dragon Roar could only freeze a half-step sage for 2 seconds and change the flow of time for 3 seconds. When masters fought, the outcome of a battle could often be decided in a few seconds. Not to mention Longao. Longao didn't give up on such an opportunity. The wild blade in his hand chopped down. Longao didn't use Blood Drinking's 8th move, Blade Splitter the Firmament. According to his current strength, once he used it, the consequences would be unimaginable if his strength couldn't keep up. Blood Drinking's 7th move, Tearing the Heavens and Splitting the Earth. The shocking blade light was like a meteor that quickly streaked across the sky. Before anyone could react, Wangu was swallowed by the blade light and disappeared without a trace. Half-step Sage Wangu was instantly killed? Half-step Sage Wangu was instantly killed by Longao's blade? Everyone foolishly looked at the scene that had just happened because no one believed that Longao could kill a half-step sage martial artist in an instant. Was this for real? No one could believe what had happened in front of them. In just a few minutes, the Palace Master's Dantian had been destroyed and the half-step Sage Wangu had been instantly killed. Was Longao even human? At this moment, everyone looked at Longao in horror. They didn't know how this person had done it. After instantly killing a half-step Sage Wangu, Longao also let out a long sigh of relief. Longao was very clear that the reason he had been able to kill Wangu half-step Sage Wangu was mostly due to luck and the other party's carelessness. Although the innate spirit ability was powerful, he believed that once Wangu half-step Sage Wangu attacked with all his strength, he wouldn't have a chance. Unless he used Blade Splitter the Firmament, but could he really use it? Firstly, the half-Saint Wangu was shocked by Longao's sudden use of his innate ability. He didn't know what was going on at all. Due to his sluggishness, Longao took advantage of an empty space. Secondly, from beginning to end, Wangu half-sage had never placed Longao in his eyes. This was because, in his opinion, no matter how strong Longao was, a world king was still a world king. How could he possibly contend with a half-saint martial artist? No matter what, Longao was not only relieved that he had killed a half-saint martial artist in seconds, but he had also completely stunned everyone in the ethereal palace. Dugubai and Sheiji, who were pinned to the stone wall, were also deeply shocked by the strength that Longao had displayed. Longao's saber strike could be said to be earth-shattering. It could be said that he was the first person to kill a semi-sage expert in a split second. In fact, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that no one had done it before or since. Snake Emperor, remember my words. The grudge between the Dragon Sect and the Ethereal Palace will not end until one of us is dead. Ignoring the gloomy Snake Emperor, Longao came to the front of the stone wall and put the two of them down. He said, "You guys go quickly. Remember, no matter what happens, don't look back. Understand?" Brother Long, waving his hand, Longao didn't give Dugubai any chance to speak. His voice was extremely solemn as he said, "If you stay, you will only implicate me. After you leave, I will naturally leave. Don't worry." If it was in the past, Dugubai and Sheiji would definitely not leave. However, after witnessing Longao's strength with their own eyes, they knew that with their strength, they would only be a burden if they stayed. In that case, no one would be able to leave. If they caused Longao's death, wouldn't they become sinners? Brother Long, be careful. If you die, we won't live alone. After saying this, the two didn't hesitate. They held hands and quickly left. In a short while, they had disappeared without a trace. At this moment, no one came out to stop them. When everyone thought of the powerful strength Longao had just displayed, they felt a sense of fear. It was too terrifying. Snake Emperor, if there's nothing else, I will leave first. However, I still have the same words. From now on, the Dragon Sect will attack with all our strength. I hope the Ethereal Palace won't disappoint me too much. Longao seemed to have thought of something. He suddenly realized and said, "By the way, I'm really sorry. I accidentally killed a sage to be. You won't blame me, right?" Hearing this, Sheiji's face became even more gloomy. Although she wanted to refute, she didn't know how to. After all, Longao had indeed killed the sage-to-be Wangu. This was an indisputable fact. Longao, do you really think that you can disregard the ethereal palace just because you killed a sage-to-be elder? Longao sneered. He believed that his blade just now was enough to intimidate everyone. He believed that no one would dare to stop him if he left now. Even the other sage-to-be warrior standing beside Snake Emperor wouldn't dare to do so. I have no enmity with the ethereal palace. It's the ethereal palace that has attacked me again and again. Let me tell you, I'm not someone to be trifled with. I won't be afraid of the ethereal palace just because it's one of the 4 major forces. You're right. I really don't put the ethereal palace in my eyes. What can you do about it? One had to admit that Longao was really arrogant to the extreme. Longao's words completely angered everyone. The disciples of the ethereal palace stared at Longao furiously. They couldn't wait to tear Longao apart. However, due to the strength of the other party, they could only endure it. Looking at Longao in front of him, the Snake Emperor felt very indignant. He was extremely indignant. If Longao were to successfully leave the ethereal palace would be completely humiliated. Therefore, Sheiji knew very well that no matter what price she had to pay, Longao couldn't leave. Snake Emperor, you're unwilling? Yes, I'm unwilling. Elder Wangu and I lost because of our carelessness. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had a chance to win. Ha ha ha. Hearing Snake Emperor's words, Longao laughed. He was really shameless. He had clearly lost, but he still had to find excuses for himself. Why bother? As the saying goes, the winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. The process isn't important. What's important is the result. No matter what, your Dantian has been destroyed and the sage-to-be warrior has been killed by me. If you want to ask who's right and who's wrong, you can ask the world. By the way, if it wasn't for Sheiji, you would be dead now. You wouldn't have the chance to talk about this so-called nonsense. Do you understand? Longao didn't give any face to Snake Emperor. He turned around and prepared to leave. However, at this time, Longao was shocked because 2 terrifying forces shrouded him. The sage-to-be warrior just now was not on the same level as these 2 people. Chapter 434. Saints had arrived. Furthermore, there were 2 saints. Seeing the sudden appearance of the 2 old men, all the disciples of Ethereal Palace were pleasantly surprised as they looked at the 2 old men excitedly. Feng Wui, Lu Bumming, the 2 saints of Ethereal Palace. Under normal circumstances, the 2 of them would not appear as they would be in seclusion all year round to break through to the so-called Earth Saint realm. However, Longao's massacre had caused the 2 of them to come out of seclusion. Looking at the 2 saints in front of him, Longao's face was extremely ugly. However, he was not surprised at all as he had already guessed that there must be saints in Ethereal Palace. However, Longao had never expected that the 2 saints would appear. It seemed that Ethereal Palace really wanted to fight to the death with him. However, it made sense after thinking about it. No matter what, Lin Fan had crippled the Dantian of the Snake Emperor and killed a saint of the ancient world. If the Ethereal Palace could still tolerate this, they could just commit mass suicide. You're the master of Dragon Sect, Longao? That's right. Who are the 2 of you? Longao did not show any fear as he stared at the 2 people in front of him. Because of this, everyone around started cursing. Damn you! How dare you be so presumptuous in front of our old ancestor? Go to hell. You're courting death. Master of Dragon Sect, Longao. I think you should be the master of Dragon Sect, Xiao. Ha ha ha. Before the 2 saints arrived, no one dared to be presumptuous. However, with the arrival of the 2 saints, all the disciples seemed to have found their backbone as they started cursing. Waving his hand, Lu Bumming smiled and said, Feng Wui, Lu Bumming, old ancestor, we support you in killing this reckless fool. Before the person could speak, a saber radiance appeared silently and split him into 2. Everyone around was so frightened that they quickly dodged. If you dare to bite others, I'll kill you. Longao's voice was extremely cold. It was as if he was a killing god from hell. He coldly glanced around, scaring everyone into silence as they looked at the young man in front of them in horror. Everyone looked at Longao in a daze. They did not know whether this person was crazy or not. He actually dared to kill a disciple of the ethereal palace in front of 2 saints. This Mother Kerr was extremely arrogant. Looking at the corpse on the ground, everyone swallowed their saliva and looked at Longao in horror. No one dared to say a word. From the beginning to the end, Feng Wui and Lu Buming did not speak, nor did they stop him. They just looked at Longao with a smile. It's our ethereal palace's fault for not disciplining him properly. So what if he's dead? But no matter what, he's still a disciple of our ethereal palace. No matter what, you have no right to kill him. What do you think? There was a knife hidden in his smile. Feng Wui and Lu Buming did not seem to be angry at all. But anyone with a discerning eye could tell that the 2 of them were extremely angry. They were just holding it in. At this time, Longao suddenly laughed crazily. He laughed without restraint and did not put the 2 saints in his eyes. Longao, what are you laughing at? I'm laughing at your shamelessness. I'm laughing at the shamelessness of the ethereal palace. You're courting death. Longao waved his hand. Things had already come to this point. He was not afraid. At most, he would die. I know that you're very confident, but I can tell you clearly that unless you can kill me instantly, it's easy for me to kill the rest of the ethereal palace. The 2 of them, who were originally full of confidence, turned cold when they heard Longao's words. The 2 of them were full of confidence that they could kill each other. But as the other party said, once Longao left successfully, the consequences would be unimaginable. They had seen the strength that Longao had just shown with their own eyes. If it was an ordinary disciple, even a saint, who could resist Longao's assassination, they could not act rashly. If they could not kill with one blow, the consequences would be unimaginable. The 2 saints were scared. Looking at the 2 founding masters who were motionless and silent, all the disciples of the ethereal palace were dumbfounded. Because everyone knew very well that the 2 founding masters were scared by Longao. Although no one was willing to believe it, the truth was in front of them. They had no choice but to believe it. Longao, you killed a half-saint elder of the ethereal palace. This hatred is destined to be irreconcilable. Today, you can forget about leaving here. Since you're a genius, I can fulfill your wish. As long as you kill yourself here, the ethereal palace will not go against the dragon sect. How about it? As the founding masters of the ethereal palace, Feng Wui and Lu Buming believed that the 2 sects would not continue to fight in the future. But would Longao kill himself? Longao was not a fool. If he died, even if the ethereal palace did not go against the dragon sect, wouldn't the other 3 forces not go against the dragon sect? It was better to be safe than sorry. What if the ethereal palace went back on their words? No matter what, Longao would not kill himself. With a mocking smile, Longao said in disdain, "What if I don't agree?" Humph, Longao, don't be so shameless. If you don't kill yourself, not only will you die, even your family and your sect will be slaughtered because of you. No one will be left alive. Longao, as the saying goes, a wise man submits to circumstances. Don't think that you're the only one who can do it. Let me tell you, with the strength of the ethereal palace, it's easy to destroy your Long family and dragon sect. Do you believe it? I don't believe it. Longao suddenly said with a smile, "You eat cows without a draft. What do you think the ethereal palace is?" Back then, the 4 forces threatened to destroy the dragon sect, but what happened in the end? Let me think. It's no less than 3 times. What else did the 4 forces do besides being slaughtered by me? Without giving the 2 any chance to speak, Longao continued, "You don't have to brag. At most, we'll go our separate ways. I'm already prepared. My family and sect will all support me." The more Longao was like this, the more serious and fearful the 2 of them were, and the more they did not dare to attack. Just like that, the 2 sides were in a stalemate. All the disciples of the ethereal palace looked at both sides in a daze, not knowing what would happen. At this time, the Snake Emperor, who had been silent all this while, suddenly said, "Elders, Longao killed our sex elders. We can't let this go. Otherwise, how can the ethereal palace establish itself in the 9 states? Shut up, you piece of trash. Get lost. From now on, you are no longer the palace master of the ethereal palace. You are really a useless piece of H*T. The reason why the sect is in such a state today is all because of you. Snake Emperor, remember this? You better shut up. Otherwise, I will kill you without mercy. Chapter 435. The sudden falling out between the two of them caused everyone to be a little surprised, especially the Snake Emperor. He never thought that the ethereal palace would treat him like this. In the end, he did this for the sake of the sect. But what was the result? Seemingly disheartened, the Snake Emperor didn't dare to say another word because he believed that if he dared to say another word, he would definitely be killed by the two old ancestors. Turning around, the Snake Emperor left step by step. In just an hour, the Snake Emperor's status had plummeted. He had gone from being the palace lord of the ethereal palace to being expelled from the ethereal palace. Not only that, even his dantian had been destroyed. He had become a complete piece of trash. After the Snake Emperor left, Fengwui suddenly said, Longao, I'll give you one last chance. Kill yourself. I'll also tell you for the last time. Impossible. Longao immediately became vigilant. No matter what, the other party was still two people. With two saints joining forces, it was impossible for him to fight against them. Once he met force with force, only death would await him. At this time, the two saints released a powerful saint origin aura at the same time, fiercely suppressing Longao. If it was an ordinary nihility martial artist, it would be impossible to resist, but Longao's situation was completely different. The aura of heaven and earth directly suppressed the two saint origin auras. Feeling this terrifying aura of heaven and earth, the two saints' faces suddenly changed. They exclaimed in unison, Nirvana rebirth. But thinking about it, the two saints directly denied their guesses. The other party was clearly only a world king martial artist, so it was impossible for him to be reborn. But how could the aura of heaven and earth be explained? Thinking about it, the two saints couldn't think of a reason. But things had already come to this point. The two saints had already decided that no matter what happened, they would kill the other party. But at this time, a figure suddenly appeared in front of Longao. Smiling, Tong Linger stretched out her hand and gently patted it. The two saints were shocked to find that their cultivation had been forcefully suppressed. Who are you? The two saints were terrified to the extreme because the girl who suddenly appeared in front of them was too powerful. Suddenly, the two of them seemed to have guessed something. Lu Bumming roared in horror. You're a great emperor martial artist? Great emperors? Thinking that the other party was most likely a great emperor expert, both Feng Wui and Lu Bumming wanted to laugh and cry. The two of them were not fools. Of course, they could see that the other party had a good relationship with Longao. Otherwise, this person would not stand up for Longao. At least you have some foresight. The grudge between the ethereal palace and the dragon sect will be written off from now on. Are you willing to do so? Write it off? Hearing the other party's words, the two of them were obviously unwilling. But was it okay for them to be unwilling? The girl in front of him was a genuine great emperor. She could easily destroy the ethereal palace with a wave of her hand. Provoking a great emperor was no different from courting death. However, they were unwilling to let Longao and the dragon sect go just like that. But looking at the great emperor in front of them, the two of them felt helpless. You're not convinced? Tong Linger asked with a smile. As a great emperor expert, Tong Linger's aura was imaginable. Just by standing there, everyone was trembling in fear. This was the power of a great emperor. It was unstoppable. Senior, Longao crippled the palace master of the ethereal palace and killed our elders. If we let this matter go just like that, where will the ethereal palace's reputation go? Humph! Before the two of them could finish their words, Tong Linger released a powerful aura from her body and suppressed them fiercely. Senior. Shut up. Who do you think you are? Let me tell you clearly, whether it's the two of you or the so-called ethereal palace, You're all trash in my eyes. If I want to destroy the ethereal palace, it's as easy as flipping my hand. Do you believe me? How could they not believe it? The other party was a genuine great emperor expert. If she wanted to destroy the ethereal palace, it would be a piece of cake. Feng Wui and Lu Buming knew that the other party wasn't joking with them. Although they didn't know the relationship between the other party and Longao, with a great emperor expert here, even if they were unwilling to let this matter go, they could only accept it silently. If they went head-on, they would definitely die. They chose to compromise, but they were unwilling. After thinking about it, the two of them finally chose to compromise. After all, a great emperor expert was too powerful. They couldn't fight against a great emperor expert. Even if the old ancestor of the sect came personally, it was impossible for them to fight against a great emperor expert. Since Senior is here, we'll let Longao go today. But Longao, I'm warning you. If it wasn't for Senior, you can forget about leaving this place. But I still have to remind you that from now on, you better not provoke the ethereal palace. Otherwise, you'll die without a burial place. Feng Wui and Lu Buming weren't fools. If this great emperor was really willing to help Dragon Sect and Longao, she would definitely destroy the ethereal palace directly. Why would she be so hesitant? As for why this great emperor didn't come forward forcefully, they had no idea. Ethereal palace, I'll still say the same thing. From now on, Dragon Sect and Ethereal Palace are irreconcilable. It's either you die or I die. You better pray that the day I rise will be the day Ethereal Palace is destroyed. You. Waving her hand, Tong Linger smiled and said, "It seems like it's impossible to not resolve the grudge between the two of you. But Ethereal Palace has indeed gained an advantage. Dragon Sect has just been established. How about this? Ethereal Palace and Dragon Sect have a year's agreement." Senior, what do you mean by a year's agreement? A year's agreement is simple. In a year's time, neither Dragon Sect nor Ethereal Palace can make a move. After a year, the two of us will go to war regardless of life or death. How about that? Hearing the so-called 1 year's agreement, the two of them cursed in their hearts. This mother f*** cur was just trying to buy time for Longao. A year's time wasn't long, but it wasn't short either. Although they were wary of Longao's growth and talent, the two of them were full of confidence. Not to mention giving Longao a year's time. Even if they gave him 3 years' time, what could he do? Could it be that Dragon Sect could go against Ethereal Palace in a year's time? Don't even think about it. Because of this, Feng Wui and Lu Buming sneered and said, "We have no problem with it. But I wonder if Longao dares to take it. After a year's time, I will personally lead Dragon Sect to destroy Ethereal Palace. I hope you won't be scared out of your wits by then." Longao didn't continue speaking. He turned around and left. Tong Linger smiled and followed him. The two of them looked at Longao's departing figure with murderous intent. This time, Ethereal Palace had lost a lot of face. After all, the news of Longao wreaking havoc in Ethereal Palace had spread across the entire Jojo continent. Chapter 436. The news of Longao wreaking havoc in the Ethereal Palace instantly spread throughout the 9 states. It was as if this was a common occurrence, and no one was surprised. Everyone was only looking forward to one thing, and that was whether Longao would succeed. When everyone knew that Longao had crippled the cultivation of the Ethereal Palace's palace master and killed a half-saint in an instant, the entire 9 states was shaken and everyone was shocked. Killing a half-saint in an instant? What kind of concept was that? Could it be that Longao's cultivation had broken through to the half-saint realm? But everyone knew that Longao's cultivation had just reached the peak of the World King realm. Not to mention the half-saint realm, he hadn't even broken through to the World Emperor realm. If that was the case, how did Longao do it? Under normal circumstances, everyone would have thought that Longao would lose the 1-year agreement between Longao and the Ethereal Palace. But Longao had wreaked havoc in the Ethereal Palace and successfully left. Just this point alone made everyone look forward to Longao's counterattack in a year's time. As for how Longao left, there were different opinions. But the only thing was that Longao's cultivation had not broken through to the half-saint realm, and he was no match for a saint. Otherwise, according to Longao's character, he would have slaughtered the ethereal palace long ago. Leaving the ethereal palace. Thank you. Longao didn't say much. He was really grateful for Tonglinger's help in leaving the ethereal palace. Longao knew that if it wasn't for Tonglinger's timely appearance, he wouldn't have been able to leave the ethereal palace by himself. Not to mention the two saints. Just the two half-saint realm martial artists sent by the ethereal palace would have made it difficult for him to leave. Although he had killed the half-saint realm martial artists in an instant, it was all due to luck. In the end, a world king and a half-saint, or even a saint, couldn't be compared. Longao, you don't have to thank me. Although I admire your courage, you have to know your own limits. Longao shrugged helplessly and didn't say anything. Longao, do you know that there are not only sage to be and saints in the ethereal palace, but also a great emperor? Upon hearing this, Longao was shocked. He had never thought that there would be a great emperor realm expert in the ethereal palace. Just thinking about it made him feel scared. If this great emperor realm expert were to take action, would he be able to contend against him? I'm sure that even the other three forces don't know about this great emperor from the ethereal palace. He's hiding very well. When you used your innate divine ability just now, his aura fluctuated slightly. Otherwise, even I wouldn't be able to sense his aura. Titled Great Emperors. According to Tonglinger, Longao was almost certain that the great emperor in Ethereal Palace was a titled Great Emperor. Longao's mood became heavier because he knew that it wouldn't be easy for him to defeat the Ethereal Palace in the one-year agreement between him and the Ethereal Palace. In other words, if he wanted to defeat the Ethereal Palace, he had to kill this titled Great Emperor first. Otherwise, there was nothing to talk about. Looking at Longao's ugly face, Tonglinger rolled her eyes and said, "If you don't even have this bit of confidence, why are you still looking for my senior sister?" Longao, I can tell you clearly that the sect that I'm in is far more powerful than the Ethereal Palace. If you can't even defeat the Ethereal Palace, don't even think about my sect. You still want to look for my senior sister. Nodding his head, Longao had already guessed that the sect behind Yu Yin and Tonglinger was extremely powerful. Putting aside the strength of Yu Yin's master, Tonglinger was a genuine great emperor realm expert. If that was the case, could it be that Yu Yin's master was a supreme Dao warrior? At the thought that Yu Yin's master could possibly be a supreme Dao warrior, Longao's heart thumped. From this, it could be seen how powerful the sect behind Yu Yin was. Longao's heart sank to the extreme. If that was the case, even if he could find Yu Yin in the future, with his current strength, it didn't seem to be useful at all. Strength. Longao knew that with his current situation, he had to have powerful strength. Otherwise, not to mention himself, even his family, brothers, and even his lover wouldn't be safe. No confidence? No matter what, I have to find Yu Yin. Looking at Longao's resolute face, Tonglinger was stunned for a moment. Suddenly, Tonglinger scolded herself in her heart. What's wrong with me? Why am I like this? Longao, if you want to see senior sister, remember one thing, don't be impulsive. For example, this time, if I didn't appear in time, you would have died here. So, I still have the same words. I hope you take care of yourself. You're leaving? Longao wasn't a fool. Of course, he knew that Tonglinger must be preparing to leave. If it was in the past, he couldn't wait for Tonglinger to leave. After all, he really couldn't control this person. God knows whether she was an enemy or a friend. But now, Longao was 100% confident that Tonglinger didn't have any ill intentions towards him. Otherwise, Tonglinger wouldn't have appeared to help him this time. Nodding, Tonglinger said, "This time, I came back with my master mainly to see what kind of person you are. Now that I've seen it, although you're a little fickle, you're still worthy of senior sister's love. Longao, before I leave, let me remind you, before you break through to the great emperor realm, it's best that you don't look for senior sister. Otherwise, not only will you harm yourself, but also senior sister." Great Emperor Realm Cultivator. Yu Yin's master had once said that his cultivation had to break through to the Great Emperor Realm before he could see Yu Yin. Now, it seemed that Yu Yin's sect was too strong. If he were to go with his current strength, it was indeed not enough. Forcefully suppressing the impulse and longing in his heart, Longao knew that he mustn't be impulsive. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Longao, I'll leave first. I believe that with my deterrence, Ethereal Palace won't find trouble with you within a year. But I can't guarantee that they won't kill you with a borrowed knife. Again, don't be impulsive. Think of senior sister for everything. After saying this, Yuan turned and left. Looking at the gradually disappearing figure, Longao sighed endlessly because he discovered that Tong Linger was not simple at all. She was temperamental and could not be fathomed at all. She had just started to smile, but in the blink of an eye, she turned hostile. Yuan, he muttered in his heart. This time, he had made a mess in Ethereal Palace and managed to keep his life. If it wasn't for Tong Linger's timely arrival, he believed that he would have been dead by now. Turning around and looking in the direction of Ethereal Palace, Longao knew that he only had a year's time. After a year, he had to destroy Ethereal Palace. Otherwise, he and his family would be killed by them. It was either you die or I die. Success or failure would be decided after a year. Chapter 437. The one-year agreement between Longao and the Ethereal Palace caused everyone to exclaim one after another. For Longao to be able to escape unscathed after wreaking havoc in the Ethereal Palace this time was considered a miracle among miracles. Ethereal Palace had sealed off Tong Linger's appearance. In other words, other than Ethereal Palace, no one else knew anything about her. Longao's successful return caused Dragon Sect to be in jubilation. Aoshue had argued with Longao many times because of this. However, Longao wasn't angry at all. He knew that Aoshue was doing this because she loved him and was worried about him. Otherwise, she would have nothing to do. In the following days, Longao focused on developing Dragon Sect's strength. He knew that he only had a year's time. Ethereal Palace wouldn't let the failure go so easily. Although on the surface, they had made a one-year agreement with Longao, the Ethereal Palace had secretly contacted the other three forces, hoping to use the three forces to destroy the Dragon Sect. If it was in the past, the three forces would have agreed. After all, Longao's growth was obvious. No one knew how far Longao would grow. However, the situation was different now. The three forces already knew about the one-year agreement between Longao and Ethereal Palace. At most, they would wait for another year. When the time came, Longao and Ethereal Palace would fight to the death. No matter who won, it would be better if both sides were severely injured. By then, the three forces would be able to reap the benefits. Without a doubt, Imperial City, Grade 3 Long Family, and Serene Hell Mansion rejected Ethereal Palace. At this moment, the Ethereal Palace was extremely depressed. How could the Ethereal Palace not know what the other three forces were thinking in their hearts? They were cursing Longao's 18 generations of ancestors in their hearts. However, the truth was right in front of them. Ethereal Palace knew that Dragon Sect had the help of a great emperor. Hence, Ethereal Palace could only wait for a year. A year's time limit. To a martial artist, a year was nothing. It would happen in the blink of an eye. It was precisely because of this that the Ethereal Palace was not too worried. They did not believe that the Dragon Sect could grow to such an extent in just a year. The Dragon Sect ruled over the 9 prefectures, but they did not enter the spirit realm of the 9 prefectures. The 4 great forces did not find trouble with the Dragon Sect, and the 2 great spirit realms of the 9 prefectures seemed to have fallen into peace. However, everyone knew very well that storms always like to appear after calmness. The 4 great forces and the Dragon Sect seemed to be at peace now. But what about a year later? Putting aside the rank 3 Long Family, the Imperial City, and the Nether Mansion, just the Ethereal Palace and Dragon Sect were destined to have a battle. At that time, it would be clear who was stronger and who was weaker. Everyone was waiting with bated breath, waiting for the arrival of a year later. The back mountain of the Dragon Sect. Brat, I urgently need the souls of great emperors. Do you have any way to help me find them? The soul of a great emperor? Hearing Fire Chilant's words, Longao was depressed. He was not a deity. Where was he going to find the so-called Great Emperor's soul? If Fire Qilin had mentioned it earlier, he could have taken out the nine-tailed divine fox's soul. However, it was too late now. My injuries have reached a bottleneck. I need the help of the Great Emperor's soul to recover. Otherwise, the longer I delay, the more troublesome it will be. I see. The recovery of the Fire Qilin's original strength was also a very beneficial thing for him. Longao naturally knew this. However, where was he going to find the Great Emperor's soul? After thinking for a while, Longao suddenly thought of a place. Sin City. According to Long Fu, there was a Great Emperor's spiritual beast sealed under Sin City. If Fire Qilin could kill it, wouldn't he be able to obtain it? Brother Qilin, please wait a moment. Longao's soul entered the dragon seal space and asked straightforwardly, Long Fu, I believe you have heard Brother Qilin's words. I would like to ask you, can you find the entrance to Sin City? Longao knew that if he wanted to enter, he would need Long Fu's help. Otherwise, everything would be nonsense. However, Long Fu had said that the Great Emperor's spiritual beast under Sin City was extremely evil. Once it was released, the consequences would be unimaginable. The problem now was whether Long Fu would agree or not. He also needed to see if Fire Qilin could suppress the evil spiritual beast. Both were indispensable. Master, if Fire Qilin was at his peak, there would be nothing to be afraid of. However, the problem now is that Fire Qilin has not fully recovered. If you enter rashly, the consequences will be unimaginable if you can't withstand the evil spiritual beast's attack. Nodding his head, Longao knew what Long Fu was worried about. Longao knew that Longao was right. However, Fire Qilin had said that he was at the most critical moment. The longer he delayed, the more troublesome it would be. If he couldn't recover his strength as soon as possible, it would be counterproductive. Not to mention the 3-year promise. Just the time they had spent together was enough for Longao to treat Fire Qilin as a true friend. Therefore, he hoped that he could help Fire Qilin. Long Fu, you know my character very well. This time, I am going to Sin City. Long Fu nodded his head and said, with Fire Qilin's help, Master can try. Although you won't be able to obtain the evil spiritual beast's soul, there is a treasure inside. There is also a place that will be very helpful to Master. However, Master, you must promise me one thing. Otherwise, I will not bring you into Sin City. What is it? Longao was curious. Long Fu had never done this before. Could there be other things besides the evil spiritual beast under Sin City? Master, when the time comes, no matter what, you must listen to me. You cannot be greedy. Longao was even more curious. He didn't know what was going on with Long Fu. However, as he was in a hurry to go to Sin City to find the Great Emperor's soul, Longao didn't think too much about it. He nodded his head and said, no problem. When the time comes, no matter what happens, I will listen to you. Long Fu seemed to be satisfied and said, since that's the case, let's go. Longao wasn't as happy as he imagined. He left the dragon seal space and said straightforwardly, Big Brother Qilin, I know of a place where a great emperor-level evil spiritual beast is sealed. It is extremely powerful. Big Brother Qilin, I want to ask you now, if you and I work together, can we kill the evil spiritual beast? This was extremely important. If Fire Qilin couldn't kill this evil great emperor-level spirit beast, this trip to Sin City would be suicide. Fire Qilin's face was also very serious. Of course, he knew what a great emperor-level spirit beast represented. If he was in his peak condition, he wouldn't hesitate at all. However, the problem now was that he had not fully recovered from his injuries. If he faced a great emperor-level spirit beast, he didn't know if he could kill it. Chapter 438. The Fire Qilin lowered its head and began to ponder. It knew very well what an emperor-level spiritual beast meant. If it was at its peak, the Fire Qilin wouldn't have any qualms. But now, after pondering for a while, the Fire Qilin made up its mind and said, Kid, I will remember your help this time. Waving his hand, Longao said, I treat you as a friend. Otherwise, I wouldn't have helped you like this. As for gratitude, I don't think there's a need for that. Hearing this, The fire Qilin obviously didn't expect this. Its body trembled slightly, and it didn't say anything else. Longao said a few words and immediately left the sect with the fire Qilin, heading towards Sin City. Spirit domain of the 9 states, Sin City. The current Sin City was no longer the same as before. Ever since the 5 great sovereigns had abdicated and sovereign Longao had taken over the reins of Sin City, the order in the city was much better than before. This time, Longao had brought 2 sages to be back with him to Sin City. Although the sect was important, Sin City was equally important. As soon as they stepped into Sin City, Longao's soul entered the dragon seal space. He went straight to the point and asked, Long Fu, help me sense where the underground entrance to the city of Sin is. Nodding, Long Fu seemed to have sensed it and said, Master, the underground entrance is here. The fire Qilin didn't enter Sin City. No matter what, the fire Qilin's body was too big. If it appeared in Sin City, it might cause a riot. After getting the exact location of the underground entrance, Longao immediately led the fire Qilin there. It turned out that the entrance wasn't in Sin City. No wonder the 5 sovereigns couldn't find it after so many years. This diversion tactic was really powerful. If it wasn't for Long Fu's help, Longao knew that he wouldn't have found the entrance either. There was no one around the nameless barren mountain. Not even a bird or insect could be seen. With such a harsh environment, Longao was very clear in his heart that ordinary people would not come at all. According to Long Fu, Longao found a hidden mound of dirt and directly pressed the mound of dirt down. As expected, before Longao could react to what had happened, Longao and Fire Qilin's bodies had already been enveloped by a white light and disappeared on the spot. There were skeletons everywhere in the mass grave. It looked extremely creepy. Gusts of cold wind blew past. Longao couldn't help but shudder. At this time, the Fire Qilin suddenly said in a dignified voice, Be careful. This great Emperor Spirit Beast's power is too evil, and it's beginning to erode a cultivator's soul. Once your soul is eroded, you will become its puppet. Shocked, Longao did not expect the great Emperor Spirit Beast to be so powerful. Big Brother Qilin, can you sense the location of this great Emperor Spirit Beast? There's no need to sense him. He's already here. He's here. Longao was amazed by the Dark Qilin's strength. Even when he was severely injured, he was still able to kill 3 titled Great Emperors. What kind of concept was this? Songyi, if you are willing to help me break the seal here, I will tell you a secret. A secret that will determine whether our Qilin race can dominate the continent. Hearing this, both the Fire Qilin and Longao were surprised. They were trying to guess what secret the Dark Qilin was talking about. Songyi nodded and said, Tell me about it first. If this secret can move me, I can consider helping you break the seal and save you. The Fire Qilin wasn't a fool. Of course, it wouldn't believe the Dark Qilin so easily. If the Dark Qilin only wanted to get out and trick them, what would they do? Therefore, the Fire Qilin wouldn't agree so easily. Chapter 439. Dark Qilin wasn't a fool. Of course, he knew what Fire Qilin was thinking. After cursing in his heart, Dark Qilin suddenly said, Songyi, have you heard about the War of the Gods? War of the Gods? Hearing Dark Qilin's words, Longao's heart skipped a beat. He knew a thing or two about the War of the Gods. Why did Dark Qilin mention it now? Nodding, Songyi Qilin said indifferently, So what if I heard it? It's good that you've heard of it. I can tell you clearly, as long as you help me break the seal here. I'll tell you where the corpses of the fallen gods are. Think about it. If our clansmen can obtain the inheritance of the gods, what kind of situation would that be? Shock. Longao never thought that Dark Qilin's secret would be the corpses of the gods. Everyone knew that countless gods had fallen in the War of the Gods. However, no one knew where the corpses of the gods were. Even the 4 major forces had been searching for so many years, but to no avail. Since that was the case, how did Dark Qilin know? Fire Qilin was also shocked. Obviously, he didn't believe it. He squinted his eyes and said, Dark Knight, you don't need to trick me. If you know where the corpses of the gods are, will you tell me? Songyi, you don't believe me? Humph. Do you think I will believe you? Dark Kirin's face turned serious. He had been sealed here for many years. He didn't want to stay here and live in darkness. Okay, follow me. Seeing Dark Kirin turn around and walk forward, Longao was curious and asked, Big Brother Qilin, does Dark Kirin really know where the corpses of the gods are? Waving his hand, Sangyi said, I don't know. However, you have to be careful. Dark Kirin was removed from our Qilin clan. If it wasn't for the fact that the Dark Kirin clan is very powerful, Fire Qilin didn't continue, but the meaning in his words was clear. Seeing that Fire Qilin didn't want to say more, Longao didn't ask anymore. After all, this was a private matter of the Qilin clan. Just like that, Fire Qilin and Longao followed carefully. No matter what, Dark Kirin's strength was there. If he were to sneak attack them, what would they do? Just like that, the two sides walked into the distance. Outside the cave, when the Fire Qilin and Longao walked out of the cave, they discovered a completely different world. Outside the cave, there was an incomparably huge cave. Moreover, it was open air. Tombs appeared one after another in front of him. There was simply no need to dig them up. Longao already knew that the numerous tombs in front of him were the so-called tombs of the gods, which were also the tombs of the so-called martial artists of the divine way. So it turned out that Dark Kirin wasn't lying. Moreover, the grave of the gods was actually under the city of Sin. This was something that no one had expected. Otherwise, the four major powers would have definitely moved into the city of Sin. Looking at the graves in front of him, Longao was extremely excited and pleasantly surprised. Longao knew very well what the grave of the gods represented. If he and his sect were able to obtain these so-called inheritance of the bones of the gods, even if he was unable to break through to the supreme Tao realm, he believed that his achievements would not be low. At that time, not to mention contending against the four great forces, even if it was a long family, he was afraid that he would also have the strength to fight. However, Longao did not act rashly. No matter what, there was still Dark Kirin in front of him. Who knew what Dark Kirin was up to? If Dark Kirin were to attack him at that time, it would be troublesome. Longao was very clear that the reason why Dark Kirin did not attack him was because of the Fire Qilin's face. Otherwise, one could imagine what would have happened. If he were to say that he wasn't moved by such a temptation, even Longao himself would despise himself. No matter what, listening to legends was one thing, but actually seeing it was another. His heart was itching. Sangyi, if we can obtain the inheritance of the bones of the gods here, our Qilin clan will be able to dominate the continent and look down on the heavens. As for the Dragon clan, the Phoenix clan, they are all bullshit in our eyes. If we want to destroy them, it will be a matter of minutes. Fire Qilin Sangyi stared at the grave of the gods in front of him. At this moment, Fire Qilin was completely moved. However, Fire Qilin was not a fool. Of course, he knew that things were not that simple. If he could obtain the inheritance of the bones of the gods, why would Dark Kirin wait until now? Whether it was Fire Qilin or Longao, they were very clear that if Dark Kirin could obtain the inheritance and break through to the divine beast realm, with the strength of a divine beast, it would be too easy for him to break the seal here. Why would he need to beg the two of them now? Spiritual beasts, after breaking through to the Great Emperor realm, were called Great Emperor spiritual beasts. Once they reached the supreme Tao realm, they would be called divine beasts. Divine beasts were the strongest existences in the world. It was also the realm that every spiritual beast dreamed of breaking through. Dark Kirin was unable to achieve this, which meant that Dark Kirin was not a divine beast. If that was the case, this matter was too strange. Dark Kirin, since things have come to this point, let's be frank. Since you have already found the grave of the gods, why don't you obtain the inheritance? I can't obtain the inheritance. Why is that? Perhaps because they were too anxious. Not only Fire Qilin, even Longao couldn't wait to ask. The two of them were very curious. They didn't know why Dark Kirin couldn't obtain the inheritance. Could it be that guarding the grave of the gods could resist such a temptation? Fire Qilin and Longao didn't believe that Dark Kirin was so noble. The grave of the gods may seem ordinary, but once you get close to it or touch the skeletons of the supreme Tao warriors, you will be attacked. At that time, I could have broken the seal, but because of the attack, my injuries worsened. So for so many years, I couldn't break the seal and leave here. Nodding, Longao and Fire Qilan had already thought of this point. Although these so-called Supreme Tao warriors had already fallen, they were still Supreme Tao warriors. Even if they had fallen, just their skeletons were very terrifying existences. Even Dark Kirin was seriously injured by the skeletons. Thinking about it, one could imagine how terrifying the skeletons of these Supreme Tao warriors were. He fiercely swallowed his saliva. He could only look but couldn't obtain the inheritance. It was better not to know at all. Motherf asterisk Ker. It was simply unbearable. Grave of the Gods, Longao roughly calculated. There were about 1,000 graves in the Grave of the Gods. What did this mean? Without a doubt, there were about 1,000 skeletons of Supreme Tao warriors in the Grave of the Gods. What kind of concept was this? Just thinking about it made one know how terrifying it was. After all, 1,000 Supreme Tao warriors, if placed in this world, would absolutely be a destructive force. Chapter 440. It was very hard for Longao to imagine just how tragic the Great War of the Gods countless years ago was. There were thousands of skeletons of Supreme Tao warriors here. That was to say, there were definitely more than thousands of Supreme Tao warriors who participated in the war. Dark Kirin, since even you can't get the inheritance here, do you think I can? Of course not, but we can leave first and tell God Kirin about this. I believe that with the power of our clan, we can get the inheritance here, the inheritance of the gods. Without waiting for Fire Kirin to speak, Dark Kirin continued, as a member of the Kirin clan, aren't you willing to do something for the Kirin clan? Shameless. Longao cursed fiercely in his heart. He knew very well what Dark Kirin meant in the end. Dark Kirin wasn't a fool. He believed that Fire Kirin wouldn't agree if he only played the emotional card. Because of this, Dark Kirin used his clan to pressure Fire Kirin. Sure enough, Fire Kirin became silent when he heard about the Kirin clan. Fire Kirin had already thought about what it meant if the Kirin clan could get the inheritance of the gods here. Songyi, it's our mission to make the Kirin clan the strongest clan in the world. I hope you can consider the overall situation. Shameless. Simply too shameless. He had seen shameless people before, but he had never seen someone as shameless as Dark Kirin. If it wasn't for his strength, Longao would have stood out and scolded him. At this time, Fire Kirin finally raised his head and smiled. Dark Knight, you're right. It's our mission to make the Kirin clan stronger. It's also something we must do. Dark Kirin was overjoyed. Songyi continued, but I won't bother you with this matter. You'd better stay here obediently. As for how the clan will deal with you, I have no right to ask. Poochie, a sound. Longao laughed. Dark Kirin was shameless, but Fire Kirin was even more shameless. Was the Kirin clan also shameless? Hearing this, Dark Kirin's face darkened to the extreme, as ugly as it could get. This time, in order to break the seal and leave this place, he had even told the two of them about the secrets of the graveyard of the gods. But in the end? Songyi, you win. But at this time, Dark Kirin suddenly sneered and said, Songyi, don't think that you can leave just because you came in. I can tell you clearly that without my help, you won't be able to break the seal here. Ha ha ha, ha ha ha. I'll give you a chance to think about it. If you've made up your mind, you can call me. I'm a little sleepy, so I'm going to sleep first. Seeing Dark Kirin turn and leave, Song Ye's face instantly turned ugly. Big Brother Qilan, are we really unable to leave? The Fire Qilan nodded. Although he didn't want to admit it, he knew that it was true. We were too careless, he said. We didn't investigate properly before coming in. I can sense that the seal here is too powerful, and it's connected to the aura of the gods. We can't break the seal with our strength alone. Can't we add Dark Kirin as well? Shaking his head, the Fire Qilan Songyi let out a deep sigh and said, if it was possible, I would have agreed to Dark Kirin's request just now. The grave of the gods. If I'm not mistaken, the grave of the gods here should have been sealed by some expert, and souls cannot break out of the seal. Sealed the grave of the gods? Hearing the Fire Qilan's words, Longao was shocked. It was hard for him to imagine what kind of martial artist could seal the souls of the divine Tao martial artists. Big Brother Qilin, are the divine Tao martial artists also divided into realms? Nodding, the Fire Qilin said, since things have already come to this point, there's no harm in telling you. According to what I know, the divine Tao martial artists are divided into 5 realms. Nihility God martial artists, Spirit Condensation martial artists, Mortal God martial artists, Earth God martial artists, and Sky God martial artists. 5 realms of the divine Tao. Longao's heart skipped a beat. He never thought that there would be 5 realms of the divine Tao martial artists. He asked, Big Brother Qilin, can you sense the strength of these divine Tao martial artists? 95% of them are Nihility God martial artists. There are no Mortal God martial artists here. Nodding, although Longao was shocked by the 5 realms of the divine Tao, he knew his own limits. Because with his current strength, he still had a long way to go before reaching the divine Tao realm. He had to reach the Great Emperor realm first. Without needing the Fire Qilin to say more, Longao had already guessed that the divine Tao martial artist who sealed the souls of these divine Tao martial artists was at least a Mortal God martial artist. It could even be an Earth God martial artist or a Sky God martial artist. No matter what, the seals of the divine Tao martial artists could not be broken by their strength alone. Could it be that they were going to be sealed here? Long Fu, what should we do now? Is there a way to leave here? Within the dragon seal space, Longao asked straightforwardly. At this moment, the thing that Longao was most concerned about was not the so-called inheritance of the gods, but leaving this place. Master, I've already sensed the grave of the gods here, but I didn't think that there would be a mortal god martial artist's seal here. With just your and the Fire Qilin strength, even if you add my strength, you won't be able to break the seal here. Just as expected. Hearing that Long Fu also had no way to break the seal here, Longao's face instantly turned cold. Could it be that he was really going to be sealed here? She was unwilling to accept this. Very unwilling. Master, if you want to cultivate here, I'll think of a way. All right. Since things had already come to this point, Longao also knew that this was the only way. Leaving the dragon seal space, looking at the grave of the gods in front of him, Longao sighed deeply. Big Brother Qilin, what should we do now? I don't know. We'll take one step at a time. We can only observe the changes, said helplessly. The Fire Qilin was also depressed to the extreme. Because from the beginning to the end, the Fire Qilin had never thought that the grave of the gods that he had entered would have a divine Tao martial artist's seal. No matter what level the divine Tao martial artist was, with their strength, wanting to break the seal here was almost an impossible thing. What should he do? No matter if it was the Fire Qilin or Longao, they were both quietly sitting in the grave space, looking at the numerous divine Tao martial artists' graves in front of them, but unable to obtain the inheritance of the gods. What kind of pain was this? This was like a burly man who had been hungry for 3 days and 3 nights, suddenly seeing a pile of food in front of him, but he could only look at it, unable to eat it. This kind of pain was unbearable. Because of this, no matter if it was Longao or the Fire Qilin, they were somewhat unable to bear it. But when they thought of Longao being attacked by the skeletons of the gods, the Fire Qilin and Longao forced themselves to endure. Chapter 441. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Longao was simply unable to calm down and cultivate. He walked here and there, trying to find a way to break the seal. Kid, what are you doing? Seeing Longao walk towards the tomb of the gods, the Fire Qilin was shocked. It seemed to have predicted something and said impatiently, Kid, don't be rash. The attack of a supreme Tao martial artist's corpse is no small matter. A light injury will result in serious injury. A heavy injury will result in death. Nodding, Longao said, Of course I know, but I must try. I don't believe that a supreme Tao martial artist's corpse is still so powerful after being sealed. Long Fu also had no way to leave here. Longao really could not wait any longer. Not giving the Fire Qilin any chance to persuade him, Longao continued to walk forward. Soon, he arrived in front of the numerous tombs. He could not feel the slightest bit of aura at all. Longao knew that this was because the corpses of the gods were completely sealed. The aura could not spread out at all. But Longao did not dare to be careless. He was 120% alert and carefully arrived in front of a tomb. Just as he was about to make a move, he was stopped by Long Fu in time. Long Fu, what's the matter? Master, are you thinking of touching a supreme Tao martial artist's tomb? Nodding his head, Longao did not conceal anything in the slightest and said, That's right. I want to see what the skeleton of a divine Tao martial artist looks like. If I can obtain the inheritance, I believe that I can break the seal here. Longao was not a fool. Of course, he knew what the Supreme Tao inheritance represented. If he could obtain the Supreme Tao inheritance, then he had a great chance of achieving the Supreme Tao position. At that time, breaking the seal would not be a difficult matter. Without any other way, this was the only way. It was precisely because of this that Longao was prepared to stake it all on one throw and try his luck. Master, I know what you mean. Under normal circumstances, you obtaining the Supreme Tao inheritance is not a problem. But now, this place is sealed by a human god martial artist. Once you act rashly and are careless, you will be consigned to eternal damnation. Longao naturally knew that this matter was full of danger and could not be the slightest bit careless. But did he have a choice? Without a doubt, he did not have the slightest bit of choice. Long Fu, you don't need to persuade me. I have made up my mind. Master, you should think before you act. Once you choose the Supreme Tao inheritance, it will be difficult for you to make any progress in the future. Longao, who was just about to leave, stopped abruptly when he heard Long Fu's words. He asked, Long Fu, what exactly does this mean? Long Fu thought for a while and continued, Master, although the Divine Tao inheritance can help you break through to the Divine Tao realm, once you break through, it will be very difficult for your cultivation to continue to break through to a higher realm. Longao jumped in fright. He had never thought that inheriting a Divine Tao inheritance would be so troublesome. Although Longao really wanted to inherit the position of Supreme Tao and become a Supreme Tao warrior, if he could not continue to break through, he would rather not accept the inheritance of Supreme Tao, because this was the bottom line. Longao let out a long sigh of relief. Fortunately, he didn't take action just now. Otherwise, even if he succeeded and inherited the Divine Tao inheritance, it would only be a disaster in the future. Longao's wish was to reach the pinnacle of martial arts. If he was stuck at the illusionary divine stage, or the spirit congealing stage, he would never be satisfied. Long Fu, am I going to be sealed here for the rest of my life? When Longao thought that he was going to be sealed here forever, he was very unwilling in his heart. However, at this time, Long Fu said, Master, although you can't inherit the Divine Tao, I have a way to let you absorb the aura of the Divine Tao warriors here, so as to condense your soul and continuously strengthen the desolate sacred body and desolate domain. Suddenly happy, Longao couldn't wait to ask, Long Fu, if I absorb the aura of Supreme Tao warriors here, can I use it to break through to the World Emperor realm? Long Fu nodded and said, Absolutely. It can even help you break through to the peak of the World Emperor realm. As for whether you can break through to the illusionary divine stage, it depends on you. Longao nodded. Although he couldn't break through to the illusionary divine stage, he was already very happy. He knew that it was an extremely exciting thing to be able to break through continuously from the peak of the World King to the peak of the World Emperor realm. Peak of the World Emperor realm. Kid, why did you come back? Seeing Longao come back, the Fire Qilin was very puzzled. He knew Longao's character very well. Once he had decided on something, he wouldn't change his mind under normal circumstances. If that was the case, why did Longao come back? Longao smiled and said, I'm going to cultivate well and try to break through to the World Emperor realm. Here?
Yes.
The Fire Qilin didn't seem to believe it. In any case, Longao was only at the World King realm. If he wanted to break through to the World Emperor realm, it wasn't something that could be done overnight. Even if Longao's talent was high, the Fire Qilin didn't believe that he could break through to the World Emperor realm in such a short time. Longao helplessly shrugged his shoulders and didn't say anything. As the saying went, facts spoke louder than words. Longao found a place to sit down and quietly waited for Long Fu's help. At this time, Longao could feel the aura of divine martial artists all around him. He couldn't help but admit that they were very strong. Just this aura alone was enough to easily kill him. Divine martial artists were truly divine martial artists. They were truly worthy of being called the most formidable existences in the world. The greatest difference between a world king and a world emperor was that a world emperor could break through the power of a world king's domain. But the spiritual essence within one's body would also undergo a qualitative change. What Longao needed to do now was borrow the aura of the divine martial artists all around him to constantly condense the spiritual essence within his body. Once a qualitative change occurred, it would thoroughly stabilize, and he would be able to break through to the world emperor realm. One couldn't help but admit that Long Fu was indeed incomparably powerful. He was helping Longao absorb the aura of the divine martial artists around him. Even the fire Qilin wasn't able to sense this. Like this, Longao quietly absorbed the aura of the divine martial artists around him, consolidating the spiritual essence within his body. He constantly compressed it, and compressed it again. At this time, Longao could feel a qualitative change occurring within his spiritual essence as he officially broke through to the World Emperor realm. Longao, World Emperor. In just a single day, Longao had broken through from a World King to a World Emperor. If such a cultivation speed were to spread out, it would frighten everyone. It was simply too terrifying. Just who could break through from a World King to a World Emperor in just a single day? Chapter 442. Longao, World Emperor. Longao was pleasantly surprised that his cultivation had successfully broken through to the World Emperor realm. Just as Long Fu had guessed, with the aura of the supreme Tao warriors around him, his cultivation had successfully broken through to the peak World Emperor realm. He was only one step away from entering the illusionary divine realm. Longao did not feel the slightest bit disappointed that he did not succeed in advancing to the illusionary divine realm. No matter what, it was already a good thing that he was able to break through from the peak World King realm to the peak World Emperor realm in just one day. One should not be too greedy. Longao was not a greedy person. He was already quite satisfied. Because of this, the fire Qilin was extremely surprised. He asked, "Boy, you really broke through to the peak World Emperor realm?" The fire Qilin was also amazed by Longao's cultivation speed. He never thought that Longao could really break through from the World King realm to the peak World Emperor realm in just one day. This kind of cultivation speed was a little too abnormal. Longao chuckled and said, "I just broke through by luck." Luck? Was it really luck? The fire Qilin did not speak because he did not know what to say. According to Longao's cultivation speed, it was not impossible for him to break through to the Great Emperor realm in less than 3 years. Longao did not continue to discourage the fire Qilin. He looked at the god's grave in front of him and said helplessly, "We don't know when we can leave this damned place." Dark Night, have you thought about it? Looking at the sudden appearance of Dark Night, Longao was still very vigilant. After all, Dark Night was a titled Great Emperor. Once he made a move, it would be difficult for him to resist. So he had to be very careful. "Dark Knight, I have no problem as long as I can break the seal." "So you've already discovered it. Since that's the case, let's get straight to the point and not talk too much nonsense." "You're right. This place has already been sealed by a supreme Tao warrior. However, with our strength, it's simply impossible to break the seal. However, I have a way to break the seal and leave this place." "What way?" Hearing that Dark Kirin actually had a way to break the seal and leave, whether it was the Fire Kirin or the Longao, their hearts were filled with joy. But on the surface, they were very calm. If they could leave, then they would leave. If they couldn't, then so be it. The Fire Qilin and Longao didn't want to stay here any longer, so they couldn't wait to leave. "Songyi, my idea is very simple. As long as you and I work together, we can break the seal here. I believe we can break the seal outside. What do you think?"
Sure.
The dark Kirin and the fire Kirin didn't hesitate any longer. The two great monarchs' spiritual beasts came to the intersection of the two caves and tried to expel all the sealing power. However, dark Kirin and fire Kirin were too naive. No matter how hard they tried, they were unable to expel the sealing power. In the dragon seal space, it's just two great emperors. Unless it's a spirit-focused cultivator, it's impossible to expel the sealing power. Master, you should ask them to save their energy. Hearing the Long Fu's answer, the Longao's heart suddenly sank. What he was afraid of had really happened. The dark Kirin and the fire Kirin didn't expect this result. The two great spiritual beasts seemed to find it hard to accept this fact. Dark Kirin and the fire Kirin looked at each other and saw a trace of despair in each other's eyes. The dark Kirin didn't expect this. He was originally full of confidence. He said, "Wrong estimation. We are in big trouble now." The fire Kirin nodded and said helplessly, "We have to find a way to leave here. Otherwise, we will be corroded." Hearing the fire Kirin's words, the Longao and the dark Kirin didn't seem to know what was going on. The fire Kirin said anxiously, "I don't know why, but in the tomb, the skeleton of the divine Tao realm is releasing an aura. Under normal circumstances, you won't be able to feel it. This aura is silent. If you are corroded, you will become puppets here." "Brother Kirin, what do you mean?" The fire Kirin suddenly looked at the dark Kirin and said with a sneer, "Although I don't know how you broke the seal, I only know that the dark Kirin has been corroded by you and has become your puppet. Am I right?" Longao was not a fool. Of course, he could understand the meaning of the fire Kirin's words. Could it be that the dark Kirin's soul had really been corroded by the divine Tao realm? Not the soul, but the divine soul. According to the fire Kirin, once a martial artist broke through to the divine Tao realm, the soul in his body would condense into a divine soul, which was many times stronger than the soul. In other words, the dark Kirin at this moment had been corroded by the divine soul and had become a puppet of a divine Tao martial artist. "Ha ha ha, Sangyi, you are really good. Yes, this dark Kirin has been corroded by me. After being sealed for so long, I was ready to play with you. I didn't expect you to discover it so quickly. Too boring." Hearing the dark Kirin's words, Longao was startled. Longao was very clear what a divine soul puppet represented. Even if it could not reach the strength of a divine Tao martial artist, he believed that it was not something that he and the fire Kirin could contend against. "Senior, this time we accidentally entered the tomb of the gods. I hope that Senior will not make things difficult for us and let us leave first. The Kirin clan will thank you." Although the fire Kirin was a great emperor, in front of the divine soul of a divine Tao martial artist, he still lowered his head. After all, the difference in strength between them was too great. They were not on the same level. Once the divine soul launched an attack, could they really withstand it? Longao did not despise the fire Kirin. On the contrary, he admired the fire Kirin for being flexible. As the saying goes, revenge is a dish best served cold. No matter what happened, they had to leave first. "Don't worry, I won't kill you. We were sealed by the divine Tao. For so many years, only I found a puppet and refined a divine soul puppet. If you die, what will I do when I am bored in the future?" Hearing this, whether it was the fire Kirin or Longao, their faces instantly turned ugly. The two of them did not dare to act rashly. If they angered the divine soul puppet, the consequences would be unimaginable. Longao was very clear in his heart that the divine soul puppet in front of him was the most powerful martial artist he had ever seen. No matter what, divine Tao martial artists were the most powerful existences in the world. Even if it was only a nihility god martial artist, it was still a lofty and unparalleled existence. Longao and the fire Kirin were extremely dignified. Although the two of them did not speak, they could see a trace of helplessness and depression in each other's eyes. Because no one would have thought that the dark Kirin's divine soul would be eroded and turned into a divine soul puppet. If they had known earlier, they would not have come no matter what. It was simply courting death. "You two stay here obediently. Don't try to escape. Otherwise, I will break your legs." Chapter 443. Watching Dark Kirin leave, Long Ao and Fire Qilin's faces were incomparably ugly. Long Ao, from now on, you have to use all your strength to resist the erosion of the surrounding souls, because we don't know how many souls have broken the seal. Nodding, Long Ao certainly knew what Big Brother Qilin was worried about. After all, the soul puppet was too strong, and the slightest carelessness could lead to eternal damnation. With a deep sigh, Long Ao had never thought that things would turn out like this. Big Brother Qilin, what should we do now? Observe the changes closely. Although Fire Qilin didn't say much, Long Ao knew that Fire Qilin had no way. It seemed that it wouldn't be easy for the two of them to leave this place. What should they do? Inside the dragon seal space. Long Fu, how much do you know about the soul puppet? Master, when one's cultivation breaks through to the supreme Tao realm, the soul in the body will condense into a powerful soul. It seems that there is a loophole in this seal, but although the soul has broken the seal, it can't leave here. Regarding this, Long Ao certainly knew clearly. Master, with your current strength and Fire Qilin outside, it's impossible for you to be a match for the soul puppet. I know this. After thinking for a while, Long Ao continued, if the soul puppet attacks us, how should we deal with it? It doesn't dare? It doesn't dare? The soul puppet doesn't dare to attack me? Hearing Long Fu's answer, Long Ao was very curious. He didn't know what Long Fu meant. Could it be that the soul puppet would be afraid of him? What a joke. The biggest joke in the world. Even if the soul puppet didn't reach the strength of the original body, it was still the soul of a nihility god expert. It was easy to imagine how powerful the soul was. Long Fu, what's going on? Master, you don't know. When you broke through to the World Emperor realm, the invisible chi of heaven and earth that you emitted had already shocked the soul puppet. If I'm not wrong, the soul puppet will definitely not act rashly before it figures out the situation. So that was the case. Long Ao finally understood what exactly Long Fu meant by what he said. The aura of heaven and earth. Until now, Long Ao still didn't know what the aura of heaven and earth was. He also didn't know what nirvana rebirth represented. Carrying the curiosity in his heart, Long Ao finally asked, Long Fu, I want to ask, what exactly is the nirvana rebirth that everyone speaks of? Could it be the divine Tao realm? Nodding, Long Fu said, that's right. However, the aura of heaven and earth is not something that a faux god can condense. Hence, the divine soul is very afraid, worried that you are the reincarnation of an expert. Once you choose to self-destruct, the divine soul is absolutely unwilling to let both sides suffer. At the end of the day, the divine soul was just unsure of its identity. He was only a world emperor, so it was impossible for the divine soul to take him seriously. However, the imposing aura of the world had deeply suppressed the divine soul. Without full confidence, just as Long Fu had said, he believed that the divine soul would not dare to act rashly. Thinking of this, Long Ao also let out a long sigh of relief. As long as the spirit was somewhat afraid, he could temporarily rest. After all, the spirit's strength was there for all to see. Long Ao and Fire Qilin didn't continue to say anything. They each sat where they were, quietly cultivating. Although they seemed to be cultivating, they were actually thinking about their own matters. However, they were all thinking about the same thing, which was the soul puppet. Long Fu's meaning was very simple. There were only two ways to erase the soul puppet. The first was to use the power of the thunder tribulation to forcefully disperse the soul puppet. The second was to use a soul attack to destroy the soul puppet. No matter which method it was, it must be supported by powerful strength. With his current strength, whether he used the power of the thunder tribulation or soul attack, it would only be counterproductive. Not only would he not be able to destroy the soul puppet, he might even suffer a backlash. As expected, quietly sensing the surroundings, Long Ao found that from the tomb not far away, there would be a trace of aura that would silently invade his body. If he didn't sense it carefully, he wouldn't be able to sense it at all. No wonder Dark Kirin's spirit had been eroded. If Fire Qilin hadn't discovered it in time, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Long Ao didn't dare to be the slightest bit careless. After all, Dark Kirin was the best example. He didn't want to become the next soul puppet. He immediately mobilized the strength of his body to resist the soul aura that was constantly pouring into his body. Just as Long Fu had guessed, the soul aura that was eroding his spirit was sealed by the spirit and couldn't resist the backlash. In other words, the reason why the spirit could break the seal was that it first silently invaded his body, controlled him into a soul puppet, and then slowly broke the seal of the tomb. If he relaxed even a little bit, he would be eroded. Thinking about it, Longao felt a lingering fear, because Longao found that there was a lot of aura that had invaded his body. If he hadn't discovered it in time and expelled it all out of his body, the consequences would have been unimaginable. There was no need to ask. Longao had already guessed that at this moment, Fire Qilin was expelling the corrosive power from his body. Fire Qilin's strength was far above his own, so it shouldn't be difficult for it to expel the corrosion of the aura. Not daring to be the slightest bit careless, Longao formed an aura shield around his body. In this way, he didn't have to worry about the soul aura eroding him. It could be considered as completely solving the biggest problem. You've expelled it? Nodding, Longao asked, Brother Qilin, what about you? I've also expelled it. If it weren't for my Fire Qilin clan's innate perception of the soul, I believe you and I would be in great trouble. It's really hard to imagine that Dark Kirin's spirit would be eroded and turned into a soul puppet. I just can't figure out why the soul puppet didn't attack us. To Fire Qilin, Longao didn't hide anything. Brother Qilin, I inadvertently condensed the aura of heaven and earth. I believe you should know that if I'm not mistaken, the other side should be afraid of my aura of heaven and earth, fearing that I'm the reincarnation of a powerhouse, and that both sides would suffer. So that's how it is. Fire Qilin suddenly understood. Of course it knew that Longao had condensed the aura of heaven and earth. Thinking about it, it was extremely likely. After all, under normal circumstances, it was impossible for Longao to condense the aura of heaven and earth. Let alone the soul puppet, even if it was the first time it heard or encountered Longao, it would still think that Longao was the reincarnation of a powerhouse. If that was the case, the two of them would be able to breathe a sigh of relief for the time being. However, the Fire Qilin knew very well that the soul puppet would one day figure out what was going on. When that time came, the two of them would still be on the road to death. Chapter 444. While Longao and Fire Qilin heaved a sigh of relief, they did not dare to relax at all. For 3 consecutive days, Dark Kirin did not appear, causing Longao and Fire Qilin to have no idea what Dark Kirin was up to. Although Dark Kirin and Fire Qilin had a huge grudge and had fought to the death back then, Fire Qilin was still a little sad that Dark Kirin's soul had been corroded. No matter what, Dark Kirin was still a Qilin. How could Longao not know what Fire Qilin was thinking? However, he did not say anything because he did not know what to say. Longao, what have you been doing for the past 3 days? Fire Qilin was very surprised to see Longao not resting at all. This was because from the beginning to the end, Fire Qilin did not know that Longao was a formation master. Moreover, in Fire Qilin's eyes, formations were not good enough. Formation masters were extremely rare on the Tianwu continent. However, formation masters were very powerful. It would not be an exaggeration to say that they could fight 100 enemies alone. Brother Qilin, I'm setting up the 9 heavens 10 earths killing formation. According to Longao's current level of setting up formations, it was impossible for him to set up a large-scale 9 heavens 10 earths killing formation, such as Yiwushuang's. However, Longao was full of confidence that he could set up a small-scale 9 heavens 10 earths killing formation. Although he did not know if it could withstand the soul attack, it was much better than waiting for death. I advise you to take a good rest. The formation is completely useless. Longao only smiled and did not rest. Instead, he continued to set up the so-called small-scale 9 heavens 10 earths killing formation. In reality, Longao knew very well that not to mention the small-scale 9 heavens 10 earths killing formation that he had set up, even the large-scale 9 heavens 10 earths killing formation that Yiwushuang had set up might not be able to withstand the soul attack. After 3 whole days, Longao finally set it up successfully. A small-scale 9 heavens 10 earths killing formation. Since he knew that the 9 heavens 10 earths killing formation could not kill the soul puppet, why did Longao insist on setting it up? Fire Qilin did not understand, but he did not ask further. In any case, he knew Longao's character very well. He was not to give up until the end. After the successful arrangement, Longao did not stop there. According to his master, the soul-capturing array, and the 10,000 ghost soul-devouring array were the nemesis of souls. No matter what, the divine soul was evolved from the soul. As long as he found the right opportunity, he might be able to succeed. Not only that, Longao also purified the power of the tribulation lightning in his body and merged it into the formation. No matter how hard he tried, Longao still wasn't completely confident. Something was still missing. What was missing? No matter how hard he tried, Longao still couldn't figure it out. Longao, are you confident? Desperate times call for desperate measures. At this moment, the Fire Qilin had no other way to deal with the soul puppets and could only pray that the array set up by Longao would come in handy. No. Hearing Longao's words, the Fire Qilin was almost depressed to death. Without you, what was the point of all this planning? If they had the time, they might as well save their strength and think of other ways to deal with the divine soul puppets. Got it. Longao, what happened? Wait. No matter how hard Longao thought, he still couldn't figure out what was missing. Just now, he had a flash of inspiration and suddenly thought of one of the formations that could help him. That was the so-called miniature eternal vitality gathering formation. The eternal vitality gathering formation was very simple. Once it was set up successfully, it could absorb the aura and power of the surroundings for its own use and continuously activate the 9 heavens 10 earths killing formation. In this way, even if it couldn't kill the soul puppets, it might be able to trap them. Longao didn't dare to hesitate and immediately started to set up the formation. Kid, don't waste your energy. If it were other souls, they might be hurt by your formation. But for me, you can forget about your wishful thinking. Longao, who was concentrating on setting up the eternal vitality gathering formation, suddenly heard the voice and his expression changed. He didn't hide anything and said frankly, I only have hope if I set up the formation. I've already said that I'm also a formation master. Do you think that the 9 heavens 10 earths killing formation and the eternal vitality gathering formation you set up will be of any use to me? Longao's heart sank. Just now, he didn't believe that the other party was a formation master. But when the soul puppet mentioned the names of the 2 great formations, Longao already knew that the soul puppet in front of him was a true formation master. A formation master of the divine path. Just by thinking about it, one would know how terrifying it was. Longao could be considered to be extremely depressed. It was one thing to encounter a divine soul puppet, but he just had to encounter a divine Tao array master. The endless vitality gathering array and 9 heavens 10 earths killing array that he had laid down were almost like trash in the eyes of the other party. Kid, I have to admit that with your age and talent, you're already very good to be able to set up the 9 heavens 10 earths killing formation and the eternal vitality gathering formation. I'll give you a chance. Be my disciple and I'll spare your life. Hearing this, the Fire Qilin's heart was immediately overjoyed. It kept giving Longao a meaningful glance. Its meaning was already very clear. But Longao ignored the Fire Qilin's gaze. What kind of joke was this? Did he have to sell himself in order to protect himself or live? Back then, the reason why Longao acknowledged Fentian as his master was firstly because Fentian didn't force him. Secondly, he and Fentian were indeed fated. But the soul puppet in front of him was not pleasing to the eye. If he could only live if he acknowledged Fentian as his master, Longao chose to go all out. It was precisely because of this that Longao refused without hesitation. I'm sorry, I won't accept you. I won't acknowledge you as my master. Hearing Longao's words, the Fire Qilin sighed. In fact, it should have already guessed it. After all, Longao's character was like this. He was amenable to coaxing but not coercion. Moreover, it was under such circumstances. It would be strange if Longao agreed. Ha ha ha, good, very good, I like it. After being rejected, the soul puppet did not feel the slightest bit of anger. Instead, it had a face full of praise. At this moment, the soul puppet did not have the body of a Qilin, but a tall and thin middle-aged man. His face was pale, and his body looked as if it could be blown away by the wind. What's your name? Longao. Nodding his head, the soul said, as expected, it seems that you should be a disciple of a Long family. You're actually a dragon martial artist, and you've even bred an innate divine ability. If nothing unexpected happens, you should be a disciple that the Long family has focused on nurturing. Longao was shocked, because he never thought that the other party had already seen through him as a dragon martial artist, and had even bred an innate divine ability. If it was the former, it would be fine, but the latter, he could not understand how the other party could guess that he had already bred an innate divine ability. As if he could guess what Longao was thinking, the soul said coldly, "Are you surprised? How did I know that you have already bred an innate divine ability, and that you are a dragon martial artist?" Chapter 445. I want to know the reason. Nodding his head, Longao really wanted to know how the other party knew that he was a dragon warrior and had the ability to reproduce. Just as he thought, the other party only guessed that he was a dragon warrior, but as for the ability, he really couldn't figure it out. Longao had full confidence that as long as he didn't release his ability, no one would be able to find out about it. Do you think that the reason why I didn't deal with you was because I was afraid of the chi of heaven and earth on your body? Hearing those words, no matter if it was the fire Qilin or Longao, they were both greatly shocked because the two of them never would have thought that the other party would say it so openly. Yes, the two of them did think so. The reason why the soul didn't dare to make a move was because it was afraid of the chi of heaven and earth on his body. Ha ha ha, Longao, I can tell you one thing. In fact, I'm also a member of a Long family, now you should understand. Longao and Fire Qilin were already standing in the same place in a daze, and no one knew what was going on in their minds. Long family of a divine path warrior? Longao finally knew why the other party could see through his identity, and why he couldn't hide his ability to reproduce from the other party. Long family, countless branches, 9 ranks, and countless clansmen. In the end, no matter what rank the Long family disciple was, the bloodline of a Long family flowed in their body, but after passing down generation after generation, the bloodline slowly thinned, causing the disciples of each rank to have less of this family mission. Senior, how should I address you? After so many years, I've forgotten my name. A name is just a code. You can just call me Nameless. He shrugged helplessly. Senior Nameless. Longao let out a long sigh of relief. After knowing the other party's identity, Longao and Fire Qilin didn't continue to worry. Longao knew that since Nameless was a divine path warrior of a Long family, he could be considered to be of the same bloodline as him. Could it be that the other party would still deal with him? Longao, tell me who you are. Since things had come to this, Longao did not hide anything and said, Senior Nameless, I came from the Red Fire Town's level 9 Long family, but now, my family has been promoted to level 6 Long family. Wait, you said that your clan was originally a rank 9 Long clan? After hearing Long Ao's identity, Wu Ming was shocked. He never thought that Long Ao was only a disciple of the level 9 Long family. In Wu Ming's heart, he had always thought that Long Ao was at least a 3rd-level disciple of the Long family. It was very likely that he was a disciple of the Long family. But in the end, Long Ao nodded. He did not feel inferior just because he was a rank 9 Long clan disciple. Not bad, not bad. Long Ao, did you go to the Long family ancestral hall for the baptism? Long Ao did not hide anything and said, Senior Nameless, I did not go to the Long family for the so-called ancestral hall baptism. My supernatural power was just accidentally reproduced. Wu Ming was completely stunned. What happened to Long Ao was simply unheard of. Wu Ming had never heard that a disciple of the Long family could reproduce supernatural power without going through the so-called ancestral hall baptism. If this matter was spread back to the Long family, it would definitely cause a sensation in the Long family. Wu Ming could be sure that the Long family definitely did not know about Longao's matter. Wu Ming could imagine that if the Long family knew about Longao's matter, they would definitely focus on cultivating Longao. How could they let Longao come here? Fortunately, he met him. If he had met other divine souls, the Long family would have suffered a great loss. Wu Ming cursed the Long family in his heart. Of course, Wu Ming knew clearly about the Long family. There were too many loopholes. Many low-level genius disciples of the Long family were drowned in the cradle before they could grow up. Senior Nameless, I really want to know what happened back then. Waving his hand, Wu Ming said helplessly, Longao, with your strength, you are not qualified to know about this. Remember, with your talent and potential, your future is limitless. Don't be impulsive. If you could come here 10 years earlier, you could get my inheritance. But now, Wu Ming was a little sad and continued, but I hope you can go further. Unless it is a last resort, I advise you not to inherit any divine path inheritance. Nodding, Longao said, I know. Longao certainly knew what Wu Ming meant. Long Fu had already reminded him of this earlier, and the reason was extremely simple. Once he inherited the inheritance of the divine Tao, then his accomplishments would stop at this point, and it was practically impossible for him to continue breaking through to a higher realm. Because of this, Longao had decided that no matter what happened, no matter what the situation, he would not inherit the divine path inheritance. Because his dream was to step on the peak of martial arts step by step. According to the remaining Fire Kylin, the divine path warriors were divided into 5 realms. They were the virtual god realm, the spirit concentration realm, the man god realm, the earth god realm, and the divine god realm. Longao's goal was very simple. That was to become a divine god. Later, I will help you to open the seal here by force. Remember, leave this time and don't come back. Because once the owner of the seal is alarmed, not only you, but even the Long family will be in big trouble. Although Wu Ming did not say much, Longao knew very well that the divine path warrior who sealed the bones of the gods was very powerful. Without Wu Ming's reminder, Longao certainly would not continue to come. Senior Wu Ming, don't you plan to leave? With a wry smile, Wu Ming said, My soul is sealed. I can't leave this place at all. With a deep sigh, Longao did not know why, but he was also a little sad. No matter what, the other party was still a member of the family. If he could leave, it could be regarded as saving a divine path warrior for the family. But in the end, the seal here was too powerful. Even Wu Ming could not break the seal and leave, let alone himself and Fire Kylin. Longao was a little helpless and sad. He did not dwell on this issue. But Longao had decided that as long as his cultivation could break through the divine path realm, then he would definitely come back and save Senior Wu Ming and leave here. Longao, can you tell me what the divine ability of your bloodline is? Nodding, since things had come to this, Longao of course did not hide it. He said, Senior Wu Ming, the divine ability of my bloodline is called Dragon Roar. Then, Longao's body suddenly erupted with a shocking aura. An illusory dragon shadow appeared behind him, and the dragon roar sounded. Chapter 446. John Doe found that his body had been frozen, and even the flow of time around him had changed. As if he had guessed something, John Doe roared in shock. Innate magic dragon roar. Of course, Wu Ming knew very well what the innate divine ability, dragon roar, represented. The dragon roar disappeared. Until now, John Doe hadn't reacted yet. Because he was too excited, his whole body was trembling slightly. Longao, tell me, how did you reproduce the innate ability dragon roar? Shrugging helplessly, Longao said, I don't know. You don't know? It was simply infuriating. It turned out that John Doe had also reproduced the dragon roar, but compared with Longao's dragon roar, they couldn't be compared at all. Longao, do you know what the innate divine ability, dragon roar, represents? Shaking his head, Longao really didn't know about this. He knew that Long Fu once told him that the dragon roar, which was reproduced by his bloodline, was extremely powerful and was considered the peak of all the innate magic. He took a deep breath. Nameless sighed and said, Longao, I can tell you clearly that the dragon roar that you have bred is the supreme innate divine ability of the Long clan. For countless years, only one person has been able to breed the innate divine ability dragon roar. Is it the ancestor? In fact, Longao had already guessed it. After all, Long Fu had said it before. The dragon roar, which was reproduced by his bloodline, was the most powerful innate magic of the Long family. And the ancestor of the Long family, as one of the most powerful existences in the world, seemed to have the dragon roar as well. As expected. That's right. Back then, the ancestor appeared out of nowhere and swept the world with his amazing talent and super strength. He also mated with the primordial divine dragon and reproduced the dragon roar. After thinking for a while, John Doe continued, according to the records left by the ancestor, the dragon roar is the most powerful innate magic. No matter who it is, once he reproduces the dragon roar, he will directly become the patriarch of the Long family. No one can stop him. He was startled. Upon hearing John Doe's words, Long Ao had never expected that his bloodline's innate magical power would be like this. He could completely imagine what the innate magical power, dragon roar, meant. Long Ao knew very well that it was impossible for him to become the head of a Long family. Let's not talk about whether or not he was willing to become the patriarch of a Long family. Just the fact that the Long family wouldn't agree to it, let alone the patriarch of a Long family. If the Long family found out about this, not only would he not become the head of the Long family, but he would also be killed by the Long family. With his and the dragon sect's current strength, would he be able to fight against the Long family? Without a doubt, this was impossible. As if he could guess what Long Ao was thinking, John Doe sighed deeply and said, Long Ao, remember, don't tell anyone about your innate magical power, dragon roar, especially the Long family. Although he was unwilling to admit it in his heart, John Doe knew that once the Long family found out about Long Ao's innate magical power dragon roar, there was no doubt that the Long family would not let Long Ao off. This was the so-called Long family. If the Long family could make full use of the Long family of various levels, it would not be difficult for the Long family to dominate the Tianwu continent. But now, although there were clear rules set by the ancestor, the Long family would definitely not abide by them. Senior John Doe, I know what to do. Sigh, the Long family is no longer the same as before. However, the Long family's strength and foundation are still there. But if it continues to develop like this, it will be swallowed up by other forces sooner or later. Hearing John Doe's deep sigh, Long Ao also felt sad for the Long family. Although Long Ao understood the hierarchy of the Long family, he did not dare to agree with the Long family's way of doing things. Just the fact that only the disciples of the Long family of the third rank and above could enter the Dragon Valley was already an extreme failure. Long Ao could imagine that among the disciples of the third rank and below, there were also heavenly geniuses, but these disciples could not be nurtured by the Long family. Furthermore, the Long family would hinder the development of these geniuses. This was the Long family. But no matter what, even if the Long family had 10,000 mistakes, it had to be admitted that in the Tianwu continent, the Long family was still a giant. No one dared to provoke them. No matter who it was, they could not shake the position of the Long family. Long Ao, I've already made it very clear. I believe you should also understand. Since that's the case, I won't waste any more words. From now on, you are not allowed to tell anyone about your innate divine ability, Dragon Roar, unless your cultivation base can break through to a certain realm. Nodding, Long Ao naturally knew that John Doe was doing this for his own good, so he did not say anything. All right, since things have already reached this point, let's begin. Remember those words. No matter what happens, don't come back. John Doe, aren't you going too far? Didn't we agree that as soon as there was a chance, you would break the seal and help us leave this place? Hearing that, John Doe's expression completely changed. Without caring about anything else, he immediately left with the two of them, forcibly breaking the seal and sending them out with a palm each. As soon as Longao and the fire Qilin left, another black-robed man appeared in the surroundings. His expression was extremely gloomy. He had never imagined that John Doe would give up on this opportunity. John Doe, we've been waiting for this opportunity for hundreds of years. Before the black-robed man could finish speaking, John Doe had already waved his hand and said, Longao is the hope of my Long family. No matter what, I can't sacrifice him. Don't worry, we still have a chance. A chance? Are you deceiving yourself? John Doe, this was originally our chance. Once we leave this place, we can achieve immortal fame. But now, everything has been destroyed by you. It's impossible for us to leave this place for the rest of our lives. Don't worry. According to Longao's talent and potential, I can guarantee that he can come back in less than 20 years. You've waited for hundreds of years. Do you think 20 years is less than that? He seemed to want to say something, but looking at John Doe in front of him, the black-robed man sighed deeply. Since things had already come to this point, what else could he say? What could he say? No matter what he said, John Doe had already left. They were sealed here, so it was impossible for them to leave. Because of this, the black-robed man was very unwilling. Looking at the merged exit, John Doe sighed in his heart and whispered to himself, Longao, I hope you won't let me down. Chapter 447. Barren Mountain. Longao stared blankly at the entrance, but did not enter in the end. Longao knew that with his current strength, what could he do even if he entered the grave of the gods again? Right now, he basically already knew about the matters of the graveyard of the gods. Just before he left, the aura of a powerhouse suddenly appeared. Longao could be 100% sure that the other party was definitely also a martial artist of the divine path, which was the so-called divine soul. Longao, this is not something you can handle. Your top priority now is to cultivate and break through to the Supreme Tao martial artist realm in the shortest time possible. Supreme Tao martial artist? Longao wanted to immediately become a Supreme Tao martial artist, but this was not something that could be done just by talking about it. But he was only at the peak of the World Emperor realm. Not to mention the Supreme Tao martial artist realm, he could not even break through to the illusionary divine realm in a short period of time. Longao sighed deeply. He also knew that if he wanted to enter the grave of the gods, his cultivation had to reach the nihility god realm at the very least. Otherwise, he would just be courting death. Brother Qilin, let's go back. Hearing this, Fire Qilin heaved a sigh of relief. He was truly afraid of Longao's stubbornness. Once he decided on something, there was no discussion and he would do it willfully. No matter what, if Longao did not enter the grave of the gods, at least he would not have to take risks. The Fire Kirin was very depressed this time. Originally, it was supposed to kill the spiritual beast and steal its soul to restore its original strength. But the result was unexpected. The spiritual beast sealed under the city of sin was actually the Dark Kirin. Dark Kirin was still Dark Kirin. Unfortunately, Dark Kirin's godly soul was eroded and turned into a godly soul puppet. Fire Qilin knew that if the black-robed men were not from the Long family, it would be wishful thinking for them to leave the grave of the gods. Longao and Fire Qilin quietly entered Sin City. As the overlord of Sin City, Longao did not want to cause a sensation wherever he went. City Lord Mansion. Longao sat on the ground, quietly cultivating. After entering the Pantheon continent, his cultivation had finally broken through from the peak World King realm to the peak World Emperor realm. He was only a step away from the illusionary divine realm. However, even though it was just one step, Longao knew that it was a difficult step. It was not easy to take. The Void World Emperor was a half-step sage in the illusionary divine stage. The two of them were not even on the same level. Longao was well aware that if he wanted to break through to the semi-sage illusionary divine stage, he would have to convert all the spiritual energy in his body into the so-called holy elemental energy. Otherwise, he would not be able to achieve anything. Although the process of converting spiritual energy into divine energy seemed simple, it was actually extremely difficult. Otherwise, why would so many world emperors be trapped here and be unable to break through to the illusionary divine stage? As such, the moment he returned to Sin City, Longao immediately entered a state of cultivation. He hoped to strike while the iron was hot and break through to the illusionary divine stage. However, Longao had underestimated the illusionary divine stage. In the end, he could only fail. However, Longao was not disappointed at all. After all, his cultivation speed was already fast enough. If news of his cultivation speed were to spread, many people would be jealous of him. Then, he stood up and stretched his body. At this moment, Luo Tian and Zhou Chun, the two half-step sages, walked in. As the most powerful people in Sin City and also the emperors, the two of them had a good understanding of Sin City. This was also the real reason why Longao had transferred the two of them to Sin City. Master, everything has been settled. Longao nodded his head, seemingly satisfied. He said, "We must not let the four supreme forces know about this. 1 year later, after I destroy the ethereal palace, the dragon sect and my family will move into the dark forest. At that time, we will make use of the time and place to set up the array. I would like to see how the four supreme forces are going to fight against me." Regardless of whether others were confident or not, Longao was confident that he would be able to defeat the ethereal palace 1 year later. From then on, the ethereal palace would be completely removed from the land of the 9 regions. Master, don't worry about this. The people we have found this time are definitely loyal. This news will definitely not be leaked. Other than this, I want you to recruit people for me. I don't care how you do it, but within a year, I want the power of Sin City to increase by 3 times. Not only that, I want the city to be cohesive. It cannot be like before, where it is a plate of loose sand. Previously, Sin City was ruled by the 5 emperors in name. However, in reality, Sin City was like a piece of loose sand. It was not enough to rely on the city management. Longao was clear that if he wanted to defeat the ethereal palace 1 year later, he had to do one thing first. Other than the sects, the power of Sin City had to increase by 3 times as well. Only then would they have a chance to fight against the ethereal palace. However, the 2 sage-to-be warriors laughed bitterly. Was it possible to increase the overall power of Sin City by 3 times in just 1 year? The 2 sage-to-be warriors were well aware of the 1-year agreement between the Master and the ethereal palace. They knew that the Master wanted to defeat the ethereal palace. However, the task that the Master had given them was a little unrealistic. How could Longao not know what the 2 sage-to-be warriors were thinking? I will help you in your direction. From now on, you can choose. Those who are loyal to Sin City will stay. Those who are not willing to stay can leave at any time. Longao was 100% sure that the 4 major forces knew that he was in control of Sin City. Therefore, if there were no accidents, the ethereal palace would definitely deal with Sin City before going to war with him in a year's time. It would be considered as cutting off his escape route. It was precisely because of this that Longao could not wait to develop the strength of Sin City. When the time came, he would attack left and right with the dragon sect. He hoped that it would have an unexpected effect. Since things had come to this point, the 2 sage-to-be warriors did not say anything more. They turned around and left quickly. In a short while, they disappeared without a trace. It's time. Longao looked at the endless void in the distance. There, the ethereal palace stood on top of the ethereal peak. In a year's time, no matter how much his strength had developed, he would bring the sect and Sin City to the ethereal peak and flatten the so-called ethereal palace. Next, Longao prepared to build an army of corpse slaves. An army of corpse slaves made up of spiritual beasts of the world kings and spiritual beasts of the world kings. If his strength allowed, he was also prepared to build an army of corpse slaves made up of spiritual beasts of the half-saint realm. In this way, he would have more confidence in the war in a year's time. Thinking of this, Longao did not hesitate at all. He immediately left Sin City and went to the dark forest. Originally, the Fire Qilin was also prepared to follow. After all, with the Fire Qilin's current strength, Although it had not recovered its original body, it was more than enough to kill a sage, to be, or even a saint. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.